All right. I want to welcome everybody to the regular Midcoast Community Council meeting of April 11th, 2018. And will the council members introduce themselves? And since Chris is busy, we'll start from my right. Lisa?
Lisa Ketchum.
Barbara Matthewson.
Ryan Kwan.
Dave Olson.
Chris Johnson.
Claire Toutant.
Dan Haggerty.
All right. And our first order of business tonight is the Board of Supervisors report. And Ellie, I assume you'll be giving that?
Alrighty, good evening Midcoast Community Council and Midcoast Community. My name is Ellie Dahlman and I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley with the County of San Mateo. The first item I wanted to just bring to your attention, last meeting I reported to you that the county has newly hired an arborist. We'll be working partly in the Parks Department as well as planning and building. And you asked if it was a new position, and it is in fact a new position that the county has created, in part sparked by the current updates that the county is going through for the existing tree ordinance. As well as by the need in the Parks Department to help manage risk and also to provide in-office training for existing parks staff. And then the two new items I have for you are just upcoming events. Supervisor Horsley will be hosting office hours next week on Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Harbor Master's office in partnership with Harbor District Commissioner Virginia Chang Corrali. Everyone is welcome to attend, and we encourage you to come and learn about initiatives that your elected officials are working on. And the second event that I have for you is on Friday, May 4th, and I brought a few copies of the flyer. They're available in English and Spanish. Supervisor Horsley's office is working with the health system in the Office of Diversity and Equity to sponsor a kickoff event for Mental Health Awareness Month. And it will be held at Cunha Intermediate School, again on May 4th. It's a free event. There'll be food, performances, raffle, various resources. The theme for the event is art and wellness, and the key purpose of the event is to help reduce the stigma of people with mental illness and substance use issues, and to bridge the community to physical and mental wellness. So I'll leave one out on the back counter, but they're also available online at smchealth.org/mental health month. And with that, are there any questions from the council?
Anybody have questions? Sure, Dan.
Yeah, I have a question. One of the questions I had last meeting was, how were the tasks of the arborist tasks taken care of? How were they dealt with in the past without an arborist?
I don't know specifically how the department's dealt with it. I would imagine that they hired an outside consultant or contractor to assist with the work that they needed.
Okay. And it was reoccurring regularly in the past, or it's just that now there's a greater need, and that's why the new position was made? Essentially? Yeah,
and I think also just related to kind of an increase in projects that have been coming up, and tree removal permits possibly also have sparked a need for kind of a standardization and kind of a relook at the process that they've been using.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I have one item I saw in the Half Moon Bay Review today, that the April 24th Board of Supervisors meeting will have the fee and permit schedule for the short-term rental ordinance. Do you know when the actual fee schedule is likely to go online?
I don't know, but I will follow up with planning and building and let you know what I learn.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Ellie. Anybody else wish to speak? Harvey? Steve? And
Good evening, Harvey Rarback, Vice Mayor of Half Moon Bay, your good neighbors to the south. We have a lot in common, and in particular, a couple of things I want to talk about. The library project, which is for the entire coast side, is on schedule, it's on budget. It should be opening July-ish, August-ish. And one of the opportunities you can have is that we were going to have a recognition and naming policy. If you want to have a room named after you, how would you like to have the Midcoast Community Council room for 25 grand? It could be yours.
And if anybody in the community wants to donate the money to support that, we'll gladly accept it.
Yes, yes. Last night, we had a listening session that was entirely in Spanish, well, 95% in Spanish. There were over 90 attendees there. It was really remarkable to see that the Latino population is finally getting more involved in civics, and it was just a wonderful experience. The council members had headphones so that they could hear the translation from the Spanish, and we got a really good translator who's not only got the words but the feeling right. So I learned a lot, and I think this is a good opportunity to continue the interaction between the community and city government in Half Moon Bay. The final item on my list here is, I see tonight's schedule is going to include sea level rise vulnerability. The Planning Commission for Half Moon Bay is right in the middle of working on developing a local coastal plan land use update, in particular the chapter on coastal hazards, which is a very important thing that includes sea level rise vulnerability. That is being worked on as we speak. You're welcome to submit any comments to the Planning Commission. Come to Planning Commission meetings that we'll be working on the LCP update. This is probably the single most important document that the city will be working on in the foreseeable future. And it's just really important that we do it right. It's going to affect the way the city and the coast side for the next 20 years is going to deal with hazards and sea level rise. And we just got a new updated map of environmental habitat sensitive areas. So we're really getting a lot of new information that will make intelligent use of how we should consider development in the future. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
And I strongly endorse, go to the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission meetings, look at the documents. They're very comprehensive, the process is good, they're listening. Yeah. Officer, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Officer Chris Barchini. Just call him Chris. I'm not sure, I think Anthony was here last time. I'm not sure if he explained the whole traffic unit that we have going on.
He gave us a little bit of
A
introduction.
little brief. Okay, so again, we're a part of a special traffic unit that will just come out here and address all the traffic concerns or traffic complaints that you may have. If there's anything new, the same contact's gonna be Jason Ivy out of the Redwood City office. Just send him an email with regard to specific times and dates of those concerns, and we'll come out here and do enforcement.
Great, and we really appreciate that unit being formed. We have plenty of traffic issues out here.
Yep.
Always more enforcement, I think, is a good thing for most people. Did anybody on the council have any specific questions or issues they wanted to raise?
Yeah, so a few nights ago, there was a large backup, probably an accident by the tunnel. I was driving down there. Do you have a way to notify residents of these incidents? Because especially for me, it's pretty pressing if you do really need to go to the bathroom after drinking a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
you know.
What I know is if there is going to be a major delay with regarding to road closures for a particular type of incident like an accident, we will put out a SIG alert. So if you go to SIG alert, those closures will be announced there. I just type in SIG alert and it should pop up. But not all accidents warrant a SIG alert. So if lanes are going to be open within 20 to 30 minutes or even less, we won't put out a SIG alert. But if it's gonna be a long closure, then we'll go ahead and put that out. And if you just check, it'll show the accident and the closure of that area.
Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
In that particular accident was a car that flipped over, so.
Okay.
But fortunately, not both lanes were closed most of the time.
Last Friday, was there another flip over?
I believe it was the one last Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, north of the,
Yeah, just
in
north of
between
the
the
town.
Yeah.
tunnel and
Yeah.
Pacifica. right?
All right, anybody in the audience have anything that they'd like to ask or bring up?
At one time, they used to have electronic billboards on, I would run by, the farms, and then also in Pacifica. And so it would announce that there's a closure and for people to make the turn back to 92 or go back from Pacifica over, 280 and redirect your, I don't know if those are still in existence. I haven't noticed that they're.
I think they're there, I haven't seen them used.
I think those are the really old ones that were used when there was a rock fall or a slide on the slide. My guess is they're no longer connected, but we can check into that, or, I don't know, do you have a
We can look into
contact?
that. The Pacifica runs out of our San Francisco office. I could still check into those. The Traffic Management Center, they handle all of the freeway signs.
Okay.
And they usually have the final say about what can be on those boards and whatnot. Sometimes we say, hey, go ahead, put up a, reduce speed for rain, and sometimes they deny, or sometimes they grant it. It just depends on the location of the highway. But I could look into that and see if those boards are up there, if they're active, and if there's any kind of, like an accident ahead. Usually the CHP, we will put that information through our dispatch, and we'll request to have TMC illuminate those signs to warn drivers of the upcoming closure. It's just gonna be a case-by-case basis at that time.
A lot of people use their, handheld devices and everything, but sometimes in those regions, you don't have reception, for antennas.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Those signs came down right after the tunnel opened. Was that 5 years ago? Those signs you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was at the northbound, it was by Shoreline Station, by just about even with the sheriff's department now.
Yeah, this one was down by the farm,
Yeah.
Strawberry Farm, on the east side of the highway past, just about past the airport.
Yeah. For some reason, they thought, the tunnel's open now.
Yeah.
Our problems are solved.
There we go.
All right, well, if you find anything, you can let us know on the
got
council,
it.
and we'll pass it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Claire,
yeah,
did
go
you have a
ahead.
question?
We're getting way ahead of ourselves, but if you do find anything about this, we could also use some signs for 92. Which is, because.
Those I know we don't have.
Yeah.
I'll be through Caltrans. Actually, when I get out of here, I'll head up north and see if those signs
If
are
they're
there.
Great, thank you.
Next meeting, we'll let you know. All right.
Appreciate your coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Steve?
Thank you, Council. Steve McGraw, General Manager for the San Mateo County Harbor District, and pleasure to be here with you this evening. I know I haven't been here in a little while. A couple of things. We're very pleased to have our Radden rescue vessel back in the harbor. That brings us back up to a full complement of 2 rescue vessels, 4 rescue watercraft. This was a vessel that was built for us in the late 70s by Radden Boat Works in Santa Barbara. They're still in business. Don Radden still runs the company, and we stripped the boat down and completely rebuilt it from the hull up. We've got a new boat, new electronics, including things like infrared forward-looking radar that really helps out on issues there. And by rebuilding rather than buying a new vessel, we probably saved somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 to $400,000. We have issued the notice to proceed for the demolition of the Romeo Pier. We have resolved all of the permit issues with National Marine Fisheries Service, Army Corps of Engineers, EPA, and Coastal Commission, and that notice to proceed has been issued. The contract calls for completion within 90 days, but we're hoping that'll be a lot sooner than that. It's a matter of the contractor now mobilizing personnel, equipment, and subcontractors. Dredging, moving forward both on the Surface Beach project and the smaller project, which is the little bit of dredging around the boat launch ramps. Again, I've said this before, but great thanks to Supervisor Horsley for organizing a meeting that brought minds together to allow us to temporarily stage the clean sand on airport property. We did just recently receive from the California Special Districts Association the certificate of Transparency Certificate of Excellence. I mean, and it's quite the deal. I'll show you. I mean, there's a long checklist of things that you've got to meet. And so we got this award. It was presented to us by CSDA at the last meeting. And so we're very pleased with that. That's very much an administrative issue, but I can't proceed without giving a shout out to our harbor staff too and the Clean Marina certifications that we have at both of our facilities. Let's see, upcoming, we've got the Board of Commissioners meeting coming up next week. Agenda for that will be out at the end of this week. And again, our board president, Virginia Chancarelli, will be joining Supervisor Horsley for office hours at the harbor next Wednesday, the 18th, from 10 to noon. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on the council have a question?
Chris. Steve, is there a date for starting the demolition? Are they going to have a certain date and we're going to have a little party down at the beach and photographs and stuff?
We have talked about that. We do not have that. We issued the notice to proceed this morning. And so we are now going to be working with the contractor to develop the actual start date. And rest assured that it will not go unmarked, that heavy equipment is coming in on a barge to take that pier down. It's all going to be done from barges. There's going to be a big scow and a barge-mounted equipment that will take it apart and put it into the scow, and then the scow, the entire pier, it's hope will fit into the scow, and then we'll take it off up to for disposal in the bay. But yeah, we will be making sure that word gets out when that's about to start.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Okay. Any audience question?
What is happening with the demolition of that wood?
With that wood, it's not reusable. There is lead paint on it. The pilings are treated with creosote, so it will all be going properly disposed of at a suitably permitted landfill.
So is it considered hazardous waste?
I don't know the answer to that specifically. I can find out whether it's technically hazardous waste. It wouldn't be going to Ox Mountain, for example. I know that much. All right.
All right, thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you.
Any other government reports of any kind? Okay, seeing none, close that item. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have an item on the consent agenda.
Public comment?
I'm sorry? Boy, I am out of it tonight. Thank you. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? We have 2 speaker slips for the RV park item. No public comments, but if somebody wishes to speak, they may. All right, seeing none, now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I forward a motion to move to consent agenda.
All right, second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, then we're on to our regular agenda. And the first item on the agenda, if I remember right, while I boot up my computer here, is the big lift presentation.
Projector?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Liz Shuck. I live in Half Moon Bay. I've been here for 21 years, and I recently retired from the Cabrillo Unified School District. I think Dave has a little video that I asked to queue up, and
I do.
Want to share that with you first, and then talk a little bit more about the big lift.
But we don't have sound, sorry. I'm sorry. And no, we're not watching soccer either. Sometimes I'm technically inept. Yeah, most of you are probably not going to hear the speaker very well, but we'll see.
Is it just music?
It's, there's written type on it.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher, a ballerina, a doctor. I want to be a fireman, an artist. I can be anything I want to be. My favorite thing about school is having new friends. My favorite is Oreos and apple juice. I know a couple different languages. I like doing math. 100 plus 100 makes 200. I know that dinosaurs lived in the desert a long time ago. My favorite thing to learn is stories. My favorite books are sharks. I like doing yoga at school because it feels good. I like being here at school. It helped us get ready. I'm excited to go to the big lift.
So the Big Lift is a collaborative of different agencies in San Mateo County, and I'm very proud and lucky to be the coordinator of a collaborative here on the coast side supporting literacy. And what you saw in the video, and you're probably already aware of, is that more than half of our kids on the coast can't read proficiently by the end of third grade, which makes them 4 times more likely to drop out of school and be unemployed or incarcerated. Although many of our kids in our community and in the county get to go to preschool when 90% of brain development occurs, a number of our children from low-income families are not able to have that same opportunity. They start behind in school and they never catch up. And we know that if they don't learn to read by third grade, that they will have a very hard time with the rest of their schooling and their career opportunities. So the Big Lift is a social venture that was gathered together by the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, the San Mateo County Office of Education, a Social Innovation Fund grant, and First Five. And the idea is to give kids the boost that they need to be able to succeed in reading. And what we've been able to do here on the coast in the last 2 years is to provide additional preschool spaces, to provide summer programs for children, and to provide family engagement programs. So through our partners, including Coastside Hope, Boys and Girls Club, and lots of other tutoring groups along the coast, we've been able to provide 40 extra slots, 200 summer spaces for summer school, and programs for parents to support their kids at home. The RAND Corporation has been following our progress, and they've been able to show that the kids that are participating in the Big Lift are more ready for kindergarten than their other low-income peers. And also in the summer, they're not losing that regular amount of reading loss that they would have because they continue to go through the summer. So what we're trying to do is to galvanize the whole coast side, is to continue to support this belief of getting 80% of our kids to read proficiently by third grade. Vice Mayor Rohrbach's already heard this, and he's been very supportive at the city council level in Half Moon Bay supporting this literacy initiative. So we created a strategic plan in order to help us with this work on the coast. One is to maintain this and sustain the funding for it. The second is to align preschool programs between preschool and the elementary school. And the third is a publicity campaign, which is why I'm here to speak to you tonight. Thank you very much for having me. Part of our campaign is to share with you this flyer that Dave is showing you, and he's posted on the website here at the Midcoast Council, to ask for volunteers. And we basically are looking for people that want to read to children, read at the library to children, the new library that the Vice Mayor just spoke about. volunteering for the library, donating children's books, becoming a reading tutor, joining the campaign, or participating in our monthly meetings. Not that you don't have enough meetings that you're already participating in. I brought some flyers to share with each of you, and then I will put others at the back of the room if anyone else in the audience is interested. I truly believe that if we work on this together, we can make the difference. To end with, before I take any questions, I have a quote from Anne Frank. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. So hoping that you can get on board. I just spoke to a gentleman that moved to Moss Beach just in the last couple of weeks, and he saw this flyer in a newsletter and called and said, how do I help? And is very interested, as many other people are, and that's why we're passing it out, to make sure we can invite more people to come and join us. So happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on the council have a question?
I have a few questions. So these are mainly reading programs for toddlers going to kindergarten?
Preschool through third grade is the focus of the program.
Preschool to third grade, and this is countywide, correct?
Yes.
And if there are there are 92,000 students in our county, and right now 4,000 students are being serviced, through this program. Are there plans to increase the percentage participation?
There were plans for increasing participation until the funding from the federal government was slashed this last year. So we've had to sort of cut back, but that's partly what our education foundation along the coast has been supporting this program, and they're trying to look for funding. I actually wrote a grant to the city council in Half Moon Bay asking them, they have a community grant program, and we're asking any of those agencies that can help us.
Have you ever tried asking like companies like Oracle or those companies that usually partner with education?
So Silicon Valley Foundation is doing that ask for us on behalf of the communities that are participating. That's a great question.
And also are you also preparing children for trans kindergarten as well? I know that it's a kind of new program for children who's born in December and late, that type of.
The transitional kindergarten, yes. The children actually that go from this Big Lift program, many of them are just at that age that they're staying in a 2-year program when they get to kindergarten. This is a 2-year preschool program, and then they're staying in 2 years if their parents and their teachers agree that that's best for them.
Because when we were young, like a few months or a year difference is a major difference for children. Still now, even in college, a person a year older than me, we still have some social differences.
Exactly.
So that's, big difference.
Good point. Thank you for sharing that.
Dan?
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned using the Half Moon Bay Library. Question, there with traffic hours and different, parents' schedules, has there been thoughts of having like remote, locations in different communities that might make it easier?
I don't think we've had that discussion. That's wonderful.
Parents to get their children to the.
That's a wonderful suggestion. Thank you very much. I'll follow up on that.
Is this related to the reading program at Moonridge at all?
Yes, actually it is. Thank you for asking. The Coastside Hope and the Sheriff's Activity League pay for that program at Moonridge, the tutoring program for the 1st through 3rd graders, and it is connected with us. They're one of our partners that comes to our monthly meetings.
I also have a suggestion. So I think that a good way to find volunteers is upperclassmen. Bring upperclassmen. They need to do their volunteer hours anyways to help read
Community
to
service?
children. Yeah, and I think that does help the upperclassmen find a sense of development. with youth advocacy. I mean, when I was in middle college, we went to daycare in College of San Mateo to read to the children there, like pretty much routinely.
Good suggestion. I met a teacher from Wilkinson yesterday, and she asked how she could have some of her older students come and read to the younger students, so thank you.
When are your meetings?
The meetings are on the first Tuesday of each month at 3 o'clock, and they're in the school board room at the Cabrillo Unified School District at 498 Kelly. They're from 3 to 4. They're immediately prior to the Chamber of Commerce Education Committee meeting, because many people sit on both committees, and then we're able to bring partners in to help support us. Thank you for asking.
Anything else from the council? Anybody from the audience have a question or suggestion? Yeah, Gail, go
I
ahead.
do. Is this the presentation you just given available? Is that on the website or something like that?
The YouTube video is linked on the MCC website, and the flyer is also on that site.
Thank you, Dave.
And I also want to mention, there are some local groups here that do that tutoring.
Yes.
Provide that tutoring.
Yes. AAUW is also one of the groups that helps. They have 35 people, women, that come to El Granada School at different times and read to the kids at the school. So that's exactly the kind of fingers we're looking for in the community, is more people that want to do that at whatever amount of time they have. The man I mentioned to you earlier can't help during the week, but he wants to come on Saturday to help at the library. So.
Do you also have any special programs there for special education children?
We do through the school district. There aren't any specifically through Big Lift, but there are through the school district itself.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
And your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The second item on our agenda is a presentation on sea level rise, the vulnerability assessment. And hold on a second here. I'll bring that presentation up. And that's, I'm sorry, go ahead and introduce yourself, because I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Good evening, council members. I'm Jasneet Sharma with the County of San Mateo at the Office of Sustainability. I will wait for Dave to pull up the presentation. Do you mind if I scoot the projector back?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that. Thank you.
I have a couple of maps in there.
Forward.
Forward?
I can adjust it. I'll adjust it for you.
There's actually a magnification knob.
All right, I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, on to the next slide.
All right. Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come out and talk about the county's effort for preparing for sea level rise. I'm going to focus more on, again, what the county is doing to address sea level rise today, give an overview of the vulnerability assessment that we've completed recently, what we learned through the process, and also what the county is doing both short-term and long-term as well. Thank you. Just a quick introduction, if you all have not heard of the Office of Sustainability at the county, a quick introduction to our mission statement, the key mission being to adapt to our changing environment, and we're doing that in a way that fulfills the needs of everyone today and in the future as well. And we have 4 key programs within our office, which is climate change, energy and water, livable communities, and then waste reduction. A lot of the sea level rise work is housed within our climate change team. A key way in which we do all of our work is collaboration with partners, stakeholder engagement, and education. San Mateo County is an extremely thriving community. We are home to beaches, parks, diverse neighborhoods. We've got the airport, we've got the port at Redwood City, high-tech companies and businesses as well. Preparing for sea level rise means taking active and very proactive steps to protect our communities, our ecosystems, our businesses from the impacts of flooding now and in the future as well. Evidence has shown that the cost of doing nothing to prepare for the impacts of sea level rise exceeds the cost associated with adapting to them by 4 to 10 times. So the county's initiative to prepare for sea level rise is called Sea Change SMC. Just a quick history lesson. It was started in 2013, 2014. It started by the 2 convenings that were held by Supervisor Dave Pine, bringing together everyone on the issue of sea level rise. The real initiative kicked off when we got funding from the Coastal Conservancy to complete the countywide sea level rise vulnerability assessment. We launched the Sea Change SMC initiative in 2015, and just in March of 2018, this year, we've completed the vulnerability assessment, and we've launched what we call our Climate Change Preparedness Action Plan, or our next steps. And I have a couple of slides at the end, I'll talk about that. A key way in which the initiative works, which is a collaboration, again, is through partnerships and collaborating with other cities, businesses, agencies, a number of community groups. And the initiative, as part of the initiative, we truly believe that only by working together can we truly be effective in this work as well. Another key tenet of the work through this initiative is outreach and education. Engaging the community and raising awareness on the issue of sea level rise is equally important, just as partnerships and collaborations are. This is something we've done from the very get-go of the initiative, and we continue to do. I have a couple of examples I've just presented here where, Dave, if you want to just skip back, where the image that you're seeing on the left-hand side is actually a shrinking shore event that we did in partnership with Half Moon Bay last year on Poplar Beach, where we put in markers to show where the high tide would be at different time periods from 2030 to 2100. The 2 images you're seeing at the bottom is a program we do with our high school students called Youth Exploring Sea Level Rise Science, where we go out and teach them about sea level rise, but then also have them take on some initiatives where they actually go and do some plantings of native habitat as well. And the viewer that you're seeing in the middle is what we had installed in 2016 at Coyote Point. So sea level in the Bay Area or in California have risen about 8 inches since 1990, since 1900, as measured by the San Francisco tide gauge. The current available science is the Rising Seas report, which is prepared by the Ocean Protection Council, and it projects that sea level rise will likely rise by about 6 inches by 2030 to about 1 foot by 2050, and about 3.5 feet by 2100. Sea level rise could be higher, but it depends at the rate at which greenhouse gas emissions are released, and also the rate at which the Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets start to melt. Some key future impacts that we're going to see is increased erosion, increased permanent inundation, or flooding that occurs every day during the high tide events, or temporary flooding and storm events. I think this is nothing new to any of you that we experience flooding and erosion as of today as well. So this is not something that's in the future. It's something we're experiencing real time right now. But sea level rise is an added factor to consider in our existing efforts to address coastal hazards moving forward. I'll quickly talk a little bit about the vulnerability assessment now. The assessment provides comprehensive assessment of flooding, erosion, sea level rise impacts on people, infrastructure, and community function. The sea level rise vulnerability assessment, the project area was all of the bay side up till Half Moon Bay. The project area did not include the area south of Half Moon Bay, just because we don't have the modeling data as of yet. We are still waiting to get the modeling data from USGS, and hopefully we'll start to take that portion on then. As I said, the vulnerability assessment was accepted by the Board of Supervisors on March 13th. And as part of that, we've also updated our website, and we've created some brochures that I will leave with you all before I head out today. So this is just a quick map, which you will see in the brochures as well, that I wanted to bring to your attention. This is a map we developed for our highlights brochure, and what it's showing you is 3.3 feet of sea level rise with a 1% annual chance storm and a future erosion scenario that you're seeing on the coast side. The map illustrates that we will see widespread flooding during storm events in the future. It also shows that a lot of the vulnerable areas are low-lying, and they're currently wetlands, so we are not completely sure how they're going to transform moving forward. This scenario basically shows flooding potential if no action is taken. It also shows widespread erosion impacts on the coast side. The erosion impacts that you're seeing is estimated with 4.5 feet of sea level rise, but the modeling did not take shoreline armoring into consideration at that point. These are all the different sectors that we analyzed as part of the assessment. So transportation systems, which would be anywhere from the airport to San Carlos Airport, the rail stations, which is BART and Caltrain, our county highways, California 1, US 101. So a lot of our highways and our road as well, and just seeing what level of impacts they're going to see. They're extremely critical because they connect people not just to jobs, but also to family, friends, facilities, recreation. Energy infrastructure, if you noticed in the map before, a lot of the energy infrastructure was within the inundation zone as well. Our stormwater and wastewater systems fall within this as well, and it would impact our ability to maintain water quality, habitat health, and prevent future flooding as well. Recreational and natural areas, we've included that in there as well. Currently, they act as natural flood barriers to reduce current flooding to existing homes and businesses. They also provide physical and mental well-being and enhance biodiversity and economic functions. And lastly, community services and critical facilities, which would be the schools, the police station, the emergency, and the medical facilities that we all depend on an everyday basis for our both physical and mental well-being as well. The study also included 30 case studies, or what we call asset vulnerability profiles. What I've included here are just some of the case studies, which is very specific to the coast side. So I just wanted to give you all a flavor of what those case studies were for the coast side. Marada Road, the Fitzgerald Marine, these are some of the areas that we looked at as part of the study, along with Surfers Beach as well. So you'll see the little image that I have at the base. It shows what that case study would look like. It has a full narrative around it as well, which looks at the exposure and the vulnerability to the asset, and then has some potential adaptation strategies that it lays out as well. So just to kind of summarize, I think most of what I've mentioned so far is some of the key impacts to the Midcoast community would include, of course, high vulnerability to erosion in this case, as we've already seen in the map panel. Assets like State Route 1, number of homes and businesses, most of the beaches, trails, and parks are vulnerable in the erosion scenario. Even places like the Marine Fitzgerald Reserve would be highly impacted, and especially areas where the seals and the animals use it for their habitat and their breeding ground would no longer be available for use as well. The key thing is a lot of our natural assets are likely to be impacted as well, but as I mentioned, it's unclear how these will really be impacted due to the high bluffs that we have as well, so this is something that does need further analysis. The key thing we learned from this study really is that sea level rise does truly affect us all. Our vulnerable assets, which is our networked infrastructure, which includes transportation, our wastewater treatment plant, our electricity grid, once one or any of those get impacted, we really start to see community-wide or community-scale risks and impacts as well. Many of these critical components or systems are located in areas that could be flooded, and a disruption to even a part of that system could have far-reaching impacts in areas even outside the sea level rise zone. So just as an example, many of our wastewater treatment plants are along the shoreline on the bay side, but they serve communities as high up into the hills as well. So if our wastewater treatment plant would be impacted, we would really start to see impacts far beyond just the area that was along the bay side. It's also important for us to protect homes, infrastructure, businesses, and community services, because again, we need to protect people's mental health, prevent social and economic disruption as well. We promote physical and mental health and wellness by ensuring access to medical services, recreational areas, and a key thing is to prevent the post-flooding health-related impacts as well. These can often include things like trauma, carbon monoxide poisoning, mold-induced respiratory diseases as well. foodborne diseases, and also some foodborne illnesses that can come in when we see the spoilage of food start to happen. We also need to focus a lot of our work on those populations that have limited resources to both prepare and recover. Oftentimes, these include our children, our elderly population, our low-income residents, or those who face unstable housing conditions, or even those who lack access to vehicles. Thank you. So successfully preparing for sea level rise will need to include, at minimum, some emergency preparedness plans, policy plans and procedure updates to the work that we do, shoreline and site-specific adaptation measures, but the key thing would be coordinated and collaborative action across multiple jurisdictions. And what we've just laid out on this slide is just showing that we need to have actions at multiple scales, geographic scales as well, starting at a building level to a neighborhood, to a city, to a regional scale at the same time. There are already a number of efforts that are underway. I just wanted to include this slide as a way to show some of the ongoing efforts. So what you see in the lighter blue are more infrastructure-related projects that are starting to happen, and the dark blue are planning efforts. So I want to, and I apologize, I think something's happened in transferring my slides to your
My version is not the same. The version on the website will not have.
It should not have. The PDF on the website should be fine. But I wanted to call your attention to 3 of the projects on the left-hand side, which is the Plan Princeton update, the Surfers Beach Sand Replenishment project, and of course the Marauder Road project, which is very specific to the Midcoast community. But then as the Vice Mayor was mentioning, we have the Half Moon Bay LCP update happening at the same time, and the City of Pacifica is working on their local coastal plan update as well. We do have a number of efforts happening on the Bay side as well, and like I said, the PDF is there for you to find out more. And if you go to our website, actually each one of these projects is a clickable link, and you can find out more information about the projects from our website. I quickly want to transition more into, there are a lot of efforts happening, but what are we going to be doing as a county? What are we supporting and trying to move forward in the future? So this is a little bit of what you're seeing is our action steps. It essentially has 3 parts to it. There is still some of the assessment that needs to continue happening. There's a planning phase to it, and then an implementation and an engagement phase. As I had mentioned, we did not do the South Coast assessment, so as soon as the modeling data is available, we will start that process. And we're also going to start assessing our key county facilities, so looking at our own facilities that we're responsible for. I also briefly just wanted to introduce my colleague who's in the audience here with us, Marcus Griswold. He is going to be leading the South Coast assessment and also the key county facilities. So it's likely that you'll be seeing more of him in the future as opposed to me. We are going to also start looking at, I have a few more things on the previous one. We are also going to start looking at a lot of the other climate change impacts. We recently got a grant from Caltrans to start looking at heat and precipitation and wildfire. So we are going to be starting that work for the whole county at the same time. And then just looking at a menu of adaptation strategies that would be appropriate to put both on the coast side and the bay side. And finally, the implementation is more updating our policies and expanding a lot of our community engagement efforts. I just want to close out by calling out a couple of ways in which you all can get involved moving forward. Again, the brochures that I'm leaving have a lot more detail in them, but I just wanted to run through a few opportunities that you all might want to think about. So again, if you haven't opted up to 100% through PCNE, please do so. While it's important for us to prepare for sea level rise, it's also equally important for us to start to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So highly encourage you all to do that. Taking public transit or riding a bike at least once a week can start to make a big difference as well. We do expect to keep holding the Shrinking Shores event. The Half Moon Bay event was so well attended that it's inspired us to do them more, and we're getting requests from places like Pacifica and along the Bayside to do them. So please do You can sign up for our newsletter and you can find out more about when these are happening. If you'd like a similar event or a presentation in your neighborhood or community, we're happy to come out or even do a tabling event at the same time. We also have these King Tide tours that we do. We did one in December of last year, and one of the King Tide tours was on Mirada Road that we had, and we will hopefully be doing one again this year come winter. So again, but if you are starting to see flooding in certain areas, please do take a picture of that and email it to us, because it's really important for us to start documenting some of the changes that we are seeing. If you are not part of your CERT team within your community, really encourage you to go ahead and get trained through that. Again, sharing information with your neighbors about both sea level rise and flood preparedness. And I think just as the Vice Mayor said, engaging in local coastal plan update processes or other general plan updates is something that we would really encourage you to do. And I just lastly wanted to point out some things that as public agencies, we all should be thinking about. So completing more local vulnerability assessments, similar to what Half Moon Bay is doing. The Plan Princeton is a similar process. It's looking at vulnerability at a really local scale as part of the update process. So taking on some of that. Developing plans to update the facilities. That's precisely what we're trying to do with our county facilities as well. And then really start to integrate adaptation into our plans and policies. This is going to take a new way for us to start doing things and the way we operate. So it is going to require a whole new paradigm at the same time. Looking at these shoreline scale protection efforts that are happening and collaborating with local jurisdictions, and then other countywide efforts that are going to start happening soon. So again, that's my contact information there. Thank you so much for your time today evening, and I'm happy to take any questions as well.
Great, thank you, Josie. Council, anybody on my right?
Is the assessment available for us to see?
Absolutely, it's
is it
on the
your
website. I mean, I did bring a copy, but they're really, really thick copies. You can download, there's a assessment, and then there's the appendices portion. We've separated them to just for ease of downloading. So
And
everything's up
the
there.
appendices information is really important, don't ignore it.
The appendices is where all the case studies are, those 30 assets that I mentioned to you. So if you're looking to see what Murada Road assessment looks like or what the surface beach looks like, then you should go to the appendices for that. I'll start to move these around as questions are coming in.
Yeah, I will say that the combined documents are about 400 pages. Don't expect to sit down and read it in an hour. Don't even expect to browse it.
And actually, that's exactly why we developed, if I can borrow one from you, that's exactly why we developed this highlights, what we call the highlights, because as we were going through all of this, we realized, like, when is anyone ever going to sit down and read 500 pages of that report? And it's, we do it because it's part of our work. But our goal really was to give you something that would be easy to understand and communicate and share with your neighbors and your colleagues as well. So please, any feedback you have for us is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing this to us. As far as what we can do as individuals to slow this down, you mentioned making sure we're buying 100% carbon-free energy. Ride a bike to work.
Sure.
At least once a week.
Yeah, more if possible, but yes.
More if possible, however often as we possibly could.
Absolutely.
I don't hear anything about, not eating meat once a week. Twice a week.
It's a great point to raise.
The livestock factory farm input to carbon emissions is enormous.
Yeah.
So I think that should be.
I completely hear you on that.
Of course, everybody knows that the big ag is not gonna have that. They'll come and, harass you.
Absolutely.
But, maybe it's worth getting harassed a little bit.
Yeah. No, I completely hear you. I think when we were putting this together, we had a really long laundry list of actions that we started with. And then I think from a communication standpoint, you just have to think like what bite-sized pieces can you give to people? What actions can people start to take?
Well, I got a big bite. I know that this is gonna cost me a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
and hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think that.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
think
I
that
completely
people
agree with you.
Should know every option they can do
Yeah.
to make a difference now to slow the whole thing down.
We have a more
That should be
robust.
the absolute, that should be 80% of your presentation, in my opinion.
Okay, that's good to hear. No, that's good to hear, because we are moving from, we've done the assessment to now it's time for action. So you're absolutely right. We need to get heavier on that piece. So that point well taken.
Anybody else on the council have questions? So I will say that some of the funding for this and ongoing funding for some of the actions is coming from the regional measure that the entire Bay Area passed. So that sounded like a lot of money. When you look at what this is going to cost to deal with, it's just a start. So I would expect we will all be paying significantly more for this in the future. All right, any questions from the audience or comments from the audience? Yeah.
I find this really interesting. One of the questions I have is, when you look at sea change, that's I'm assuming that's the slow rising of the sea. Is there any overlap in your discussions about tsunamis? Because it seems like some of the things you've covered, like the destruction of the roads and the inability to get to medical facilities, is overlap.
We do have what we call the storm events. So the 100-year storm is what we include in this assessment, and the 100-year storm is essentially a 1% chance of a storm of 100-year intensity happening in any given year. So we do include that. We do not have the capacity to go as far as a tsunami event at this point, but I think a 100-year event was the best we could do at this point. So it includes, all the assessment includes that.
Anybody else? Carl?
Yeah, there's the old trick, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, bit, and you already have identified a big hole. Is the county going to start leading the charge against no more development in those areas, subject to sea level rise and flooding? That's the more development that's allowed in those areas, you're digging yourself deeper into the hole. You're afraid to broach that?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I think we ourselves have just begun to kind of wrap our heads around, because we've completed the assessment. We now have an understanding of what the impacts could be. It has taken us a good 2.5, 3 years just to complete this out. Now we kind of have an understanding of the scale of the problem. All the steps I laid out to you as part of our next steps, the planning, that's essentially what we're going to try and do, is understand, okay, what kind of strategies are best for which part, because the whole coast side doesn't look the same. Every part looks very different. And then we've got our cities as well. They have their own initiatives going on. So it has to be a collaborative effort as well. And that's exactly what we are going to start in May, is pulling all of our stakeholders back together. We are working with Stanford. They've got a natural capital project that does provide research. There's the San Francisco Estuary Institute. So we're working with a couple of partners that can help us understand, okay, here's the problem. Now what are our options? Let's start to hone them and drill down a little bit more on that.
I would point out that that development in these areas subject to sea level rise, storm events, flooding, and so forth, you already know that that's the problem. You know that protecting those kinds of areas, dealing with them, is where most of the money is going to be spent. Any further development in those areas, adding things that have to be protected, are going to increase the amount of money that's going to have to be spent on this. Now is the time to start paying attention to this stuff and start having these development policies.
I completely agree with them. That's exactly what it said. We need to update our plans and policies so that the right set of policies are in there, and it's something that comes through a more community engaged process as well. So that's exactly what we're hoping to embark on.
But it would be a real problem under current law to just tell people they can't develop their property. So that's going to either require a change in law or counties and cities buying those properties. So it's not going to be cheap either way.
Still, there's the permitting process, and people who want to do certain kinds of development in these vulnerable areas, that will then subject everyone to having to pay for their protection. Instead of having that happen through the permitting process and so forth, we can have everyone be responsible for their own protection within the overall scheme.
So I think the county, even though our last LCP update wasn't that long ago, I think another one is in order. Both Half Moon Bay and Pacifica are working this. The Coastal Commission has some guidance now that the county needs to catch up with. And this would address this about new permits and all, and give more tools to control that.
Absolutely.
As Lisa just said, the Coastal Commission has just issued its residential
Guidance,
guidelines
right.
for
Yeah.
sea level rise.
Yeah.
So there is lots of information about how we can try to reduce the impact of development. How's that?
Yeah, it's a draft, and they're taking comment through the end of the month, so highly encourage you all to look at that.
Thank you. Really appreciate the
Thank you so
presentation
much.
and the information and the work. Oh, I'm sorry, Gail, did you have something?
I just want to ask one question. Your website up here, Sea Change, is that something that would provide information, the criteria for things like that? In other words, what's the plan? In other words, what's given priorities? Because you have a number of different things that the
Yeah.
county's going to be implementing.
Right.
But what priorities do they have? Will that information be available?
With time, certainly. Like we said, we've just closed out the assessment, we released it, the County Board of Supervisors accepted it. We're literally taking a month to breathe as we've done that. It's been a 3-year-long process, and we are going to kickstart the next phase, which is going to help us. And as things come out, we will be posting them on our website, absolutely. But you can always email me, and I'm happy to share stuff as well.
Now that you guys have some clarity around the problem,
Yeah.
what is the intention for, or is there intention for putting more resources into your group so that we can start to move faster on the implementation of some of these ideas?
Say that again, when you say your group,
Well,
you
your-
mean kind of
your-
our shop, like Sea
Yes,
Change?
Exactly. So you guys have done all the research to
Right,
understand what is
right,
so.
yeah.
And you're also providing some ideas to
Absolutely.
change the situation. It sounds like that effort is going to be monstrous
Yeah,
as well, and you
yeah.
don't have 3 years.
So I can share that when this work started, it was one sole person that was hired. As of today, there's me. We just brought Marcus on as well, so suddenly within 2 years, we've added 3 more people in there. So the county is extremely supportive and is really finding the resources for us to do this work. At the same time, there are a lot of grants out there. We just got the grant from Caltrans. So it's a combination of county supporting us through the positions and the staff time, but then us being mindful and applying for grants as well.
And there are many, many agencies providing data
Yeah.
and people and other resources
Lots
for
of-
this effort. It's
Thank
not
you,
just
yes.
the county.
There are lots of regional agencies that are working on this, so we really want to work off each other and not duplicate efforts. Thank you for pointing that.
So you have been working then like with the Caltrans, because I know they've been doing sea-wise.
Yes,
studies.
yes.
They have a lot of data they've been doing. it.
They just released like a transportation assessment as well, and
I wonder how long Route 1 will stay.
yeah, there's a regional effort. There's a regional effort happening through BCDC, Bay Conservation Development Commission, where they are looking at transportation and sea level rise. So we are part of that working group, and we're working very closely with them again, so that they're doing the heavy lifting, but what comes out is useful to the county as well.
And the Caltrans assessment did specifically address areas of
Yes.
Highway 1,
Mhm.
such as Surfers Beach
Right.
and down by Pescadero and other low areas. So it's there, I believe that's on our website, right, Lee? I know it got talked about. If it's not, we'll find it.
I think it's still, the what we got was still a draft.
Ah, okay.
I have to check, I don't know if I posted it or not.
Anyways,
Check with the latest.
but Caltrans is doing it, USGS is doing huge amounts of modeling, NOAA is doing modeling. All those agencies are talking to each other. I'm sure the Harbor District is paying attention as well because of the harbor facilities, so.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you want it? And our next agenda item will be the order point, I'm sorry, not the order point, the proposed 50-site RV park at the harbor, not the existing order point one. Lisa will take that.
Here we go. So, the Harbor Village RV Park, as it is now proposed to be called, is at the, just to review, it's at the northwest corner of Capistrano and Highway 1 on vacant 3.3 acres at 50 RV spaces, 7 tent sites, a restroom laundry facility, and they say they're going to have a 58-day maximum stay. There'll be an on-site manager 24/7. So this project has been around for a while. There was a pre-application public workshop in May 2015. It was at the Yacht Club. I don't know if any of you remember that. And then the official project was submitted, and we had a referral and a meeting here in September 2017 with the applicant to go over it, and we submitted comment on that. Now there's a resubmittal with some more adjustments, and that's what we're commenting on tonight. The project has not been downsized through these iterations. It's just been rearranged. And on the, so I've made a Harbor Village webpage under the planning tab on the MCC website. That's midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. And it has all the plans and reports and public comments so far there, and to find out everything you want to know about it. And there's also a link to the county's, what do they call it? Case history summary or something anyway, and it's got notes from the planners, and you can tell that from the comments just on this resubmittal that it's not ready to go to the planning commission, so there is not a sense of urgency yet as far as, I don't know if we'll get to comment on the next resubmittal, but anyway, they're still working on. So the parcel in question is outlined in yellow. Does that show up? Yeah. And I marked the red arrows are what you can still see as you're driving south on Highway 1 of the harbor and the ocean. So the letter that I have drafted, just go over the key points. The key community concerns with this project are the visual aesthetic of the harbor gateway and preservation of the remaining slice of ocean view corridor from south on Highway 1. No further, what we're asking, no further coastal view blocking should be allowed than already obstructed by earlier phases of this development. The Oceana Hotel, wedding building, Harbor Village shopping mall, restaurant, bar, and the perimeter row of cypress trees. Also, you can see in this picture along the north side, you can see the agricultural field. That's prime ag soil, it's zoned agriculture, it's in production. And later on, we're going to propose a hedgerow there to go not only across next to the RV park, but along the parking lot for Harbor Village as well. So this is standing on Highway 1 and looking through this view corridor that still remains. The height, so we're asking for this height-restricted clear view easement with plantings no greater in height at maturity than 3 feet above the adjacent Capistrano Road elevation. So if you're looking across here, you can see that white picket fence on the other side of the grassy area, and that fence is about 3.5 feet tall. So you get a sense of anything taller than that pretty much is going to start to block the blue water view. We're also asking for this is me going off into my horticultural roots. This is what I did for a career. Landscaping aesthetic in the harbor gateway. Mostly California natives in a natural and formal style, selected and spaced so that they can achieve their mature size and natural form without disfiguring pruning or obstruction of harbor and ocean views. And I also put here the MCC could coordinate with the Harbor District on their landscape plans for the harbor gateway. We also asked to reduce the size and content of the entry sign. In the letter it explains some of these businesses are off-site advertising, like the brewery or Mezzaluna. Basically, this highway is a scenic corridor, and off-site advertising is not allowed unless you have a grandfathered permit from Caltrans, which surely this sign does not have. And there it is, right in the middle of the view, very big. So I don't know if the county will go for it, but it didn't hurt to ask. And the new perimeter fence, they're not going to use the picket. They had first put forward a 3-foot split rail, then the current plan is this 4-foot post and wire mesh with vines all growing in it, and it, all told will be about 5 feet high. And the letter says that we would prefer the 3-foot split rail because of the style and the transparency over the 4-foot packed with vines. And also we asked to broaden the curve of the perimeter fence at the highway corner and pull it inside the sign. So the sign would be outside the fence and with native plantings around it in the public view. So this is the site, the RV parking, I put the arrows on for the Clearview easement. And so basically, landscaping tall enough to screen the RVs from northbound Highway 1 and Capistrano Road needs to be planted north and outside of the Clearview easement, which will require some modification of the RV layout plan. At a minimum, this could be provided by removing space 32, 49, and 50, and I put the numbers in there so they show up, those three. What did I do now? How do I get that to go away? Sorry. Oh, come on.
No, you're back, you're back.
Okay. How rude to be interrupted that way. Where was I? So, space 32, so the, then you could devote the full width of the rows, those 2 inner rows at space 32 and 49 to some tall landscaping and maybe backed by a 10-foot lattice fence for the, until the landscaping gets tall enough. Also, the comments in the letter say the RV spaces are tight at 20 feet wide. The California HCD, what is that, Housing and Community Development? They have requirements that the RVs can't be any closer than 6 feet, and then those inner rows, some of them are as close as 2 feet, so there needs to be some adjustments there. And also they have 8 visitor spaces, which likely is not adequate for extra vehicles. Basically, if there's space for the tow vehicle or an extra car in the RV lot, and then those 8 visitor spaces get used up, and then you have visitors come and visit you, there's no overflow for this facility. All the parking on Capistrano has been removed to accommodate the hotel, and the Harbor Village parking lot is maxed out. In 2014, they added a wedding building, and that maxed out that parking. So they're not supposed to use that for overflow parking. This is about the ag buffer, where the plan calls for a row of New Zealand Christmas trees along there, and yeah, they're pretty trees and all, but it's not, basically what the agricultural buffer, this hedgerows, bring to the picture is biodiversity. They're native plants, they're all assortment, and there's insects and microorganisms, it's a good thing. And RCD can help them, they're promoting this, and they can help them pick some suitable plants. So the RV parking lot will greatly enlarge the vast unbroken expanse of the Harbor Village parking lot, which sorely lacks visual interest that should be provided by extensive use of landscaping. The letter asked to investigate the depth and quality of soil at the Harbor Village parking lot islands as to the cause of the failure of those plantings to grow or survive. The RV lot, these islands must have deep fertile root run for the trees to mature and provide this screening. And the plan, the grading plan, they're going to off-haul, 3,000 cubic yards and then bring in a bunch of road base and whatever, and then add some dirt. And I just suspect that this parking lot, it was just done in a broad thing, and then when they got all done with the asphalt, they dug out a little hole there, planted the tree, and it's been there for 10 years, and I can't figure why that tree is so small, and why this just dirt. I mean, anyway. The comparison here, the upper right picture is at the Half Moon Bay Brewing Company, and you can see they have an island there. It's all got big plants. And by the way, the little picture in Harbor Village lot at the lower left is a New Zealand Christmas tree, and so is the one in the upper right picture. And it's got this natural multi-trunk thing, and it's big. I mean, so there you are, same tree, same species. Then the RV landscape plan includes about 20 of these arbutus marina. And what we're asking for is to use the natural multi-trunk form. This is such a beautiful tree in its natural form. And the ones over at the hotel, the picture on the left is what they've used. It's trained in the nursery they prune it off and stake it up to make it be a tree, and that's fine if you're putting it in a sidewalk, but you don't need to do that in this case, and so I'm hoping that they will listen to that. Then we also asked them to remove all the invasive Mexican feathergrass. It has just taken over all their beds. It's in the neighbors' landscaping, and it's going to be our next pampas grass, I fear. And the picture at the bottom is a suitable replacement grass, which I'm sorry about the Latin name, but there's no common name for it, but it's the first cousin to our native deer grass. And it's just, I know for a fact, it's in my backyard, and it's tough, year-round, good looks, drought tolerant, great. So that was, and I just had to show you, this is the same picture, the little grass there in the front, and this is, I just have to say, this is my backyard and the barred landscape behind on Pillar Point Bluff. It's a habitat restoration project I did, but this is sort of my landscape aesthetic that I'm trying to, we can get some of this look at the Harbor Gateway. And then last is this traffic cone orange paint added to the restaurant there. We're asking that it be restored to the former color. The size, shape, and placement of the restaurant make it eminently noticeable without the jarring color. We may need to submit this to code compliance to see if they would address it, but it can't hurt to ask for it as a condition of approval, I figured. So that's my presentation. Any questions? And I hope that summarized the letter I had posted.
Lisa? I totally agree with you, but why was the exterior color section added to this letter, which seemed to be focused on the RV park, and that's not part of the RV park, is it?
Okay, so this property had a number of parcels. So back in '89, when they initially approved the first phase of it, was the hotel, the mall, and all that. And at that time, people were saying, well, what are your plans for these other parcels? One was where the RV park is going, the other was where the wedding building is. And they said, oh, well, we have no plans to do this. It's a different owner at the time. They said they had no plans for development, but clearly there was a connection. And we've seen this before, where we want to know what's planned for the whole area before we commit to this piecemeal thing. But they didn't require that, and so the first phase was finally finished being constructed in 2008. And then in 2014, they came up with the plan for the wedding building where they used to have a tent. And that showed me, because I had a lot of back and forth with the planner on that project, that it was related. The wedding building is a separate parcel, but it's related to this complex. It's all under the same ownership. They're using shared parking, and then there were conditions of approval for the wedding building about that parking lot. To beef up the beach parking signage and this and that. So my thought was that, and also there's the entry sign out there on the highway which says Oceano Hotel. And like I said about off-site advertising, if that's a separate business, then that's off-site advertising. You shouldn't be doing that. So clearly it's all one thing, and maybe the county will take a different position. Maybe they'll do some things and not others, but I think it merited the request.
Thank you. Sorry, one more question, Brandon, then you're up. Do we have any information about the color schemes that they've selected for the permanent structures for this RV park?
So there's just the laundry/bathroom, And I didn't look. I know on the online permit site it said they wanted to see the color samples. And I'm presuming because it's in the LCP, they're supposed to use nautical, you know, blues and grays. And the, when the hotel was finally built in the mid-2000s, they had submitted color samples, and the note was, the planning director said, I think they had several shades of one was yellow, and they said, no, not the yellow. And so the colors were as you see them. Then I've seen in other permits also where the county says, if you're gonna change the color, you need to check with us, or whatever. It seemed like it might be something we could do.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandon.
So how long has the sign been up for? I mean, it seems like since I moved here, there's a sign existed there.
Which sign?
You know, the entrance sign.
Yeah, it's been there since the mid-2000s when the hotel and everything was built. They keep changing what's in the sign,
Yeah.
but it's the same.
But the outside sign, the county approved, notwithstanding the advertisement inside the sign, but the shape of the sign and the
Yes.
sign itself, it's approved by the county.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. Anybody over here? Dan?
Yes, thank you for doing all this work, Lisa. But I've got like real concerns with the capacity of the road, the intersection. You know, what everybody comes and loves Pillar Point Harbor is for its sleepy, small seaside town, tranquil, postcard views. And part of that is that road. It's got a capacity. This is gonna put that intersection way over capacity. People coming back and forth, the RVs crossing, it's already a serious concern, as it is now, without the RV lot. But people coming back and forth to their RVs, going to the restaurant, going on bike rides, going into the ocean, you're just gonna have a constant flow of people back and forth. Not to mention the big trucks pulling RVs, trailers in and out at that, you know, the intersection, I don't think anybody can deny, it's already over capacity.
Just to clarify, there's
and,
two intersections in the traffic report. Are you talking about the highway Capistrano or the entrance to the harbor
I'm
village?
talking mostly about the entrance to the harbor.
From Highway
The left
1?
arrow, the left
one
arrow.
or this one?
That one, yes.
Yeah, the traffic study.
That is the most sensitive intersection.
Right, the
That is
traffic
where-
study, the traffic
Sorry.
study studied both of those,
Uh-huh.
just those two.
And it shows over the next 5 years, it's not forever, but over the next 5 years, it shows a roughly 5-second increase between this project and all the other surrounding projects in the delays at the stop sign.
Okay, so I don't buy that.
I'm not saying you have to buy it, I'm just saying they did the
it's
traffic
already-
study and that's what they're showing.
Okay, well, you know, at another time, we'll take a closer look at that. But, you know, without any numbers, I think the people in this room already know that intersection is beyond capacity. So to add that many RVs on the other side of the road, Capistrano, they're not gonna just stay in their RV, come down here and stay in their RV. They're gonna be coming out and walking into the harbor and back and forth. So, you know, the turning action of the RVs and all the cars going in and out of that, plus the pedestrians crossing the road, is, I don't think it would be acceptable. I have some other concerns. You mentioned the parking issue. So there's already overflow parking into the El Granada. And these streets around, I've already witnessed it. I live a couple blocks away from that intersection, so I see it every day. there's already cars flowing into the residential area. And so that's just gonna get worse, you know, the salmon season, there's trailers up there also, it's you know, honestly, I think the best use of that property is for the Harbor District offices to be pushed way in the back. They have a small parking lot, there'd be very few people going in and out of the area. The very front portion of the lot, close to Capistrano Road, could remain wide open and could be a straw, you know, a straw floored, overflow parking lot, outdoor events, holiday areas to decorate, to make the, you know, that's what I'm gonna be talking to Steve about shortly, and the other harbor commissioners to go in that direction. But I think I've said enough.
So was this clarifying questions or what?
Concern was the parking, the intersection, traffic, the impact.
Well, let's
To that
sort of
intersection.
poll the council. So are there other clarifying questions from the council? Is there anybody else on the council who wants to make a comment on the presentation of the project?
I'll make a comment after the.
Okay, so we'll defer those until after public comment.
I have a potential amendment I'd like to add to the letter. I don't know if the public wants to hear that.
Well, go ahead and raise the issue, and we'll discuss it afterward. That way, at least the public
So,
knows
let's
about it.
see if I can find my document. I would like to add a section to this letter titled Traffic Circulation and Safety. And this would be the text of it. The June 2017 draft traffic impact analysis prepared by Hexagon based on data gathered in March and May of 2017 raises concerns and questions about access and mobility for the proposed RV park site. Series of points. What size vehicles were used to determine level of service and mobility conclusions? Was the viability of the driveway entrance to the shops at Harbor Village tested with any Class A or Class C RVs, or were mathematical formulas and models used exclusively? Next point, only Pillar Point RV Park should be used as a comparison for measuring Saturday peak hour volumes, not residential RV parks or RV parks not on the coast side. Next point, was the secondary northern entrance to the Harbor Village Mall considered when determining traffic flow and volume impact? And lastly, should the background conditions consider new proposed developments in Half Moon Bay as well as the Midcoast? And so that, we have that, each of the council members can look at that.
Thanks. All right, I'm now going to open it for public comment. I have two slips, so we'll start with those. First one is Marcia Yates, all right, followed by Jane Preisel.
Hi, Council. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on this. I'm Marcia Yates, Moss Beach, and I represent Resist Density. Resist Density, whose mission is to promote sensible development on the San Mateo Midcoast, supports the draft comments and recommendations to be prepared by the MCC. Impact, we just have a few suggestions about that. And our concerns are as follows. The impact on the scenic view. The current proposed design will result in blocked views. Even with the attempt to preserve the southbound view corridor and not block the ocean view, as proposed on the application, you will see that the RVs and the trailers from both the north and the south dominating the view. Also, the next issue is cumulative impact of large-scale developments. This RV pack will add to the growing list of large developments on the coast in various phases of approval processes. Yet there is a lack of any meaningful study which takes into account all of the developments and their impacts on traffic, road safety, sewer, the environment. Who's looking at the big picture? Also, as we were just talking about, there is a lack of comprehensive traffic studies. There is no comprehensive traffic study taking into account all of the developments. And in Connect the Coast and Big Wave, and now the change of Big Wave from a brewery back to the big industrial park. And then, of course, the last thing is the large number of sanitary overflows. The coast has a failing sewer infrastructure, and as illustrated by the large numbers of overflows documented. We question whether the current infrastructure can support any more new development. Thank you.
Jane Graceover? Graceover, sorry.
It's a plan to pray for silver. Thank you. First off, I just want to say thank you to all of you for all the work you do, and you come each time, and I'm actually in awe of all the work you do. I'm a little shocked at this whole RV thing. I mean, we have some jewels in the crown on the coast side, and you know what they are because when tourists talk about coming to visit, they'll mention what the jewels are. It's the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. It's we want to go have fresh fish at the harbor. And my memory when I first saw this place to possibly move here was this expansive view of the harbor. And the fact that we're even contemplating letting somebody take that away from our community is really shocking to me, that we haven't identified what those jewels in the crown are and say, no, these are something we really, really have a high priority of preserving. So first off, my reaction is shock. The second thing I want to say is about blocking the view. It's kind of an odd problem to say we don't want the unsightliness of RVs, so we need to somehow disguise them, but as we disguise them, we block the view. It's a kind of a really difficult kind of question on how to do both of those. We almost need some kind of technology to make them invisible, I guess. I agree with the last speaker about density. We never seem to have the big picture discussion about housing needs. I think most people on the coast side believe that we need affordable housing. We want to have adequate housing for visitors. We kind of take some pride in the fact that visitors want to come see us. But we never have that big discussion. I think there'd be a lot of people that would there's a lot of aging population in Half Moon Bay that would do well to be able to have more grandmother quarters in their houses. Maybe that could serve tourists, or that could provide affordable housing. But we never seem to have those discussions. It just seems like, unless they're going on and I'm unaware of them. But I stay on next door and I see that the community is getting very fatigued by these huge amounts of developments that we seem completely unable to do any kind of slowdown or stopping on. And then my last point that I'd like to say, actually I have two more. One is the traffic concerns me. I live in El Granada. When you get on the highway through that intersection, there's a place where the traffic chokes. And some people are more aggressive than others, and when it chokes from 2 lanes to 1, you kind of have to assess. I drive a smaller car, so I usually back away. But I mean, there will be more aggressive drivers and there will be larger vehicles if you're going to have RVs, so that concerns me. And you know when there's gridlock, when you have one accident and that kind of throws off the whole community. So we are really on the verge of gridlock. The last comment I want to make is the elephant in the room. With the last time we had a tsunami warning, we came to gridlock. A lot of people just gave up and sat on the highest point. If you go through the neighborhoods, you'll see the signs. This is where you run if there's a tsunami. And I think with all this development, you know, we try to stay calm and say, we'll come up with the development, we'll come up with the plan eventually. Or we can kind of go the other way and say, you know what, some people are simply going to die if we have a tsunami because we don't have adequate roads. Now we can take the attitude that we'll just build all these hotels and eventually we'll have to expand the road. Or we can take a more realistic view and say, how can we make sure that people living in this community, that there are adequate ways for them to get out without overbuilding and overpopulating the area. So anyway, those are my comments, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Pete?
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is the first time I've ever been here. I really appreciate everything you guys do.
Can you give me your
yes,
name?
ma'am.
I'm the secretary. What was
Pete
your name?
Amore.
Okay.
Amore. So, my thoughts kind of mirror this gentleman's about this a lot of the issues that he was talking about. Just looking at that, it's just like, it's like the worst use of land ever, but I could complain about it for a long, long time. But I would say that the intersection that you're talking about is bad, but also the intersection northbound 1, you have 2 left lanes going into Pillar Point Harbor. Been a ton of accidents at that intersection because that outer turn lane going left, and then so you're basically going west into the cars are constantly smashing into each other. If you got RVs there, it's going to be you know, a lot worse. And I would say the striping and the lane, the way the lanes go coming across the highway, they're kind of sketchy. They're not.
You're talking about.
Yeah, when you go through
That's
the.
actually technically one lane.
Yeah, so, but people use both lanes, so you also oftentimes have people both vying for a space, you know, once they cross the highway. I think the whole infrastructure of Princeton is at its peak, basically. Any beautiful day, it's packed. And I mean, I guess that's a good thing. But I mean, it's good now, but if it gets, with this park, I can see it only getting more crowded, slower. And if I'm not mistaken, Keat owns the shops. Keat Nurhan owns that development, and he owns that RV park. So yeah, I mean, I would almost say he's putting that RV park there to prop up that lousy mall that he has. Somebody might think that about him. So anyway, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pete. Carl?
Well, sometimes I wonder in our general passivity, because I think we're being very passive about this process, if we've had our eyes open over the last couple of years. Is there anybody under any illusion that we are not completely swamped on nice weekends, holiday weekends, whatever, by the visitor traffic in addition to our local traffic? We are beyond gridlock. This is one of the 2 worst places in the Midcoast because it's got a traffic light there. This place at Capistrano and Coronado. And there could not be a worse place for a project that's going to add vehicles. I mean, I don't even care about vehicle length and whatever. It wouldn't even, we're already completely jammed up at this location, and we're going to add more. I mean, this is insanity if you've been awake during busy weekends. I mean, is anybody here has not witnessed this already, and you want to add more? So that's my initial reaction to this. A few points. I know Lisa's very concerned about the aesthetics. I would avoid using California natives because you're going to get pine trees and cypress trees and all sorts of things. You better be local natives of an appropriate size, local species. Shrub-type plants, woody shrubs.
Talking about the ag buffer or the view?
No, I'm talking
view
about
easement?
your concern about the view blocking.
Yeah, well, so we're asking for the clear view easement, and at mature height, they can be no higher than 3 feet above Capistrano Road.
I'd get into species. You're gonna, if you say California, in this state, they'll grab stuff from wherever and consider.
Well, the letter, it goes into more detail. It says, look, well, and also that, other times we've asked for this with the landscaping and we did it for a house on Coronado. We also did it for the new fire station in Overnata, and the wording that the planner used that they put in related to that, mature height, no. I figured to ask for something that they've already willingly done, and this related to trees growing up, and so that was Summer Burleson's approach, to just say a maturity no higher than 3 feet above the road.
In other words, no trees.
Yeah, and, yeah.
Bonsai trees. as well.
If you can enforce it. Some of the people here probably know that there's been, it's not so much in the news anymore, but an ongoing struggle about the trees which are clearly illegal as to the original permits alongside the current RV park on the Half Moon Bay's cherry stem. Okay, those trees don't belong there, but it's correcting the situation, just been blown off for decades. Another thing, 28-day maximum, that's a pretty long residency. I'm not sure that the other RV park has a 28-day maximum on it.
It does.
Does it now? Because it used to be 2 weeks, and they'd never enforce it. So that's
the
a long
standard
time.
Coastal Commission length of stay.
Again, who's
on
going to
coastal
enforce
facilities.
that? And are you going to have people pulling out, spending an evening somewhere else along Airport Road or Capistrano and then pulling back in?
There's also a maximum number of days per year, and there's an interval in between. It's not well enforced, but it is.
And again, those things have not been enforced in Half Moon Bay's nearby RV park. Very often these things go no farther than the verbiage on a piece of paper. If you haven't hammered out the specifics of enforcement. I would say that any traffic, I just call BS on a 5-second delay traffic study. I mean, these traffic engineers hired to justify projects are insanity. Every recent example we've had of this. In Pacifica, we may remember when they were lengthening when they were lengthening the bridge across San Pedro Creek, which was actually, if people paid attention, a widening project more than a lengthening project. They said they had a little detour involved, 45-second delays. It got up to over an hour on busy weekends. And, these things just do not hold water. 5-second delay at an already jammed up. And I point out that it doesn't take an additional percentage of traffic. You can have free-flowing traffic and 10% more cars will jam up that stretch of road or those intersections. You don't have to have the same percentage increase to increase the delays in these areas. So this makes no sense at all, a 5-second delay here. And finally, as other people have pointed out, and as Chris suggests at the end of his edition, the cumulative effects of these things have got to be considered. And the resist density people have recently put out a long list of everything going on the coast side. If you don't consider all of that and much more on into the future, then this is a meaningless approval. This is the way things are done in California to overload places. It's piecemeal. Ever since Caltrans, for example, could not get its freeway from San Francisco down the coast to Santa Cruz, they've been piecemealing the thing. And they've been trying to piecemeal it through Pacifica. There's been some good recent resistance to that. Devil's Slide Bypass was a piecemeal part of this freeway, and so forth. And they own the width of a freeway down much of our south coast. And they piecemeal stuff. Well, we're getting piecemealed to death on these land uses on the coast sides, where individually it's said to be not so much. Oh, big wave, not so much, which is even crazier than this. But big wave, not so much, and so forth. Cumulatively, if you don't consider these things all together in the effect that they're going to have in a very short period of years, you have just wiped out the whole thing on the basis of out-of-town consultant studies. It makes no sense. So I would say that the letter should go much farther than aesthetics. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Anybody else wish to make public comment? Sure. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Please state your name as well.
Virginia Stalder.
Could you do it for the microphone, please, so the video will pick it up?
Yeah, Virginia Stalder. I've been in this community for a little under 50 years, and I've seen this piece of land used for a number of things, a circus, chili cook-off, you know, all kinds of things. I live about a long block from that corner, and the accidents are frequent. You know, when you think of an earthquake before Devil's Slide, we had people who could not get to work. They couldn't get, they were taking boats, airplanes, doing everything imaginable to get to their jobs. And when I look at a piece of property like this that has had wonderful use and now is going to be destroyed by a bunch of motor homes that are really just an intrusion upon our lifestyle, it's beyond belief. And when I think about the turning of a motorhome into that road, I see it wiping out, you know, the division of the two-way little entrance to Mezzaluna Cafe and that whole area. So my question is, have we already approved this?
No.
Is it done?
No.
Has the Coastal Commission approved it?
No. Nobody's approved it yet.
Because everybody seems to be talking as though it's an approved, and we're just trying to formulate a way of approaching it. And I am so in opposition.
I'm sorry if I gave that impression. Basically, this is the status. We've had a pre-application public workshop, then the project was submitted last fall, and the MCC is simply asked to comment on an early referral. This has not gone before any decision maker.
Okay, I've been watching it.
And now there's been a resubmittal, and we're commenting on that. Still has not gone before. The decision maker will be the Planning Commission, and clearly from the notes on county's online website, they're not ready to go there yet. They're still telling them to do more studies and more things, and so we just watch and comment when we can.
Well, when Westinghouse, I think it was, had this property, you know, there was a big push to prevent any kind of construction there. Now, Keith has been able to provide the corner with the hotel and the mall and the wedding tent and all the things that he's wanted. But I really feel that this would be a big mistake to the quality of life, not just to that corner, but to the way this whole Half Moon Bay, El Granada, Montara, Moss Beach, Pacifica, you know, functions. You're going to have, I don't know, it's just beyond words that I'm opposed to it. Thank you for hearing me. And I do appreciate all your efforts. Thank you. Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to make a comment under the public comment section? Okay, Marcia, so you've already had 3 minutes. Try and keep it brief.
Well, I do it as a regular citizen. I just want to also remind everybody about the Plan Princeton and the remodeling and the redoing of the whole harbor with what. Aren't they going to have a community center, not a community center, visitor center, and add more parking and expand that whole thing? So with the modernization of the harbor area, this this RV park is going to add just that much more, there'll be just that much more traffic. And also there's Dunes Beach, which is also thinking about, there's a proposal of putting in a 50-unit RV park. So we have to take that into consideration as well as we're talking about the development along the Midcoast.
Did you say Dunes Beach is a proposal?
Yeah, it's been discussed quite a bit on next door. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. Steve Bowerman, I'm a resident of here in El Granada. Well, first of all, I'm just kind of disappointed that there's not more of my, neighbors here. Thanks for being here, by the way, and thanks for being here too, all of the council. But yeah, this is a big thing. The thing that really bothers me more, I guess, than anything is we've got a perfect opportunity. Keaton-Urhan does of making a nice little gateway that's our north entrance, let's say, to Half Moon Bay, our community of Half Moon Bay. Some people will say that our actual new portal or a new entrance would be as we get out of the tunnel. You know, that is considered maybe our the point where we reach the coast side. But to me, it's right there. Why can't there be some sort of park there? You know, I've got a very good friend in Auburn who's a sculptor, does beautiful bronzes, and he does these incredible marine mammal sculptures, almost life size. And Douglas Van Hout is his name. He's a pretty well known guy. We could have like a beautiful bronze sculpture there, maybe something, you know, with a fisherman in it, or, you know, who knows, something that that would show that, you know, we're proud of our community. You know, we've got, we have this, the young lady just mentioned about, we've got Dunes Beach. They want to put in right there, they want a huge RV park. The Jameson family, who owns James Ford, at the south end of Half Moon Bay. Now there it is, there's our entrance. There's our entrance to our community. Instead of building that up, how about a park there or something to that? Do we have to fill in every empty space? That's the frustrating thing for me, is why we have to, we find an open space, and not to bash Keaton-Urhan, but he's notorious for that. I mean, every chance he gets, I mean, he's got property. Why not be a good neighbor? You know, just get, you know, do something for the community, not completely give us this urban sprawl. We can get a Lindemar. You know, anybody can do a Lindemar in Orange County. I mean, we can do that. You know, we know that. We've seen it happen. But over there as you come in, there again, as you come in to Half Moon Bay from 92, you're going westbound. There was a little postage stamp little property there. Now Keat found a way of getting a permit through the city of Half Moon Bay. He's got this 2-story building in this area that's probably 50 by 50. We've all seen it. The Keller Williams, I believe, real estate office is there now. There's our entrance, our spot where we could be proud. Well, it's too late now. I mean, it's a moot point. There's a spot that he could have helped us out and helped us be proud of our community with a little park, sculpture. I don't know, I keep bringing up sculpture like I'm trying to get some business for my friend in Auburn, but there's just so many things that you could do. And, you know, why are we just allowing this person, not to bash him again, but why are we allowing this person to continually do this? This is our community too. I mean, how about some consideration for us? It's really frustrating. It goes without saying, I've probably taken up my time, but yeah. I had one last thing I wanted to say. When I got here 52 years ago, when I started meeting a few people, it was a little cliquey then, but I started meeting a few people. Most of them, it seemed like more of a conservative community. And what the thing that struck me as odd was these guys are probably about a dozen friends, and they were telling me, well, we've got to have this. We have to get. I'm in construction, so yeah, okay. Well, it's nice to build a house here, build a house there. Let's build Sea Haven. Let's build Casa del Mar. Let's build these little areas. So they were all in favor. There was a very pro-growth council in Half Moon Bay at that time, and they never saw a project that they didn't like. You know, everything was approved. So, trying to speed up my story. About 12 of these guys and women that I met up with over the years, and I go, well, what happened to you? Where are you now? You go, well, I went to Idaho. I went to Oregon. I'm up in Redding now, Northern California. I go, well, I thought you were born and raised here. This is your place. He goes, oh, Half Moon Bay? Are you kidding me? The coast side? It's all built up now. You know, so, you know, this is the people that voted and were in favor of the old guard, the people that built the place up. Now they're gone. So basically, do your business, in our community, and then you take off. This is the kind of thing. I can see this with Keaton Airhan. I can see this, he's going to be jammed up in traffic someday and say, his money, he can move anywhere. I'm going to go over to Black Hawk. I'm going to move over to Hillsborough or Atherton. I've got the money to do it. I don't need this anymore. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Keith. You've set this up. You set the table for all this, and now we all have to suffer. So that's all I have to say. Sorry to rant. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, I'm going to close public comment. I do want to make a few comments. People keep saying that the traffic studies don't consider all of the ongoing projects. They do. And this traffic study is no exception. They get feedback from the county planning department on projects that are in the planning stage or pre-construction or wherever they are, and they apply a correction factor for extra traffic. Now, whether that correction factor is the right correction factor is a harder question to answer, only time will tell. But they do consider the other projects. As far as stopping the project, we have to remember, under California and federal law, you can't just stop somebody from using their property. We can buy it. People come up with money, they can buy it, stop it. We can limit things, but we're not going to be able to stop Keat or anybody else from building on that property, not by force of law or force of permit. So we can work on amending the projects, we can work on getting the zoning ordinances changed, we can work on getting the LCP changed. These are all very long-term projects. But we can't just say no. So, you have to keep that in mind. There has been some concern about traffic going into that intersection. People reporting lots of accidents on next door. I've seen some, I haven't seen a lot. I'm back and forth over that intersection a lot going to the harbor. I'm sure Steve's back and forth over it a lot. There are delays there. And the delays that they talk about, these traffic studies, are not, you are going to see a 5-second delay because of an RV. It's over the course of the day, an average delay of 5 seconds at that intersection will occur. And when you think about a 50-slot RV park, you're not going to have all 50 going in and out every day. So it's not going to be huge. You'll get some traffic from people's cars that are pulling them and towed behind them, but you're not going to get a huge amount of traffic on an ongoing basis. So there aren't very many RV parks on the coast that they can use. They have to look at RV parks all over the Bay Area, which is what they did. And they're not using quote-unquote mobile home communities. They are using RV parks as comparison. So we may not like the way the traffic studies are done, but they are following accepted practice. And if you think something in them is wrong, by all means, bring the things you think are wrong to our attention. But to just say, no, they're wrong with no basis doesn't help. So,
Can I ask you a quick question?
quick,
Can you find out how much the property costs? I mean, maybe, no.
Keats owned it for a while, and as far as I know, it's a closed record, so we can't find out. And even if we could, we couldn't tell you. You would have to go look it up yourself.
Well, my point is, we might be able to find it down there.
I would hope. We've tried for other projects and have not had people come up with the money, but it's not to say that people can't try. So I want to bring it back to the council. Brandon, you had something. Chris, you had more. Dan, you got your first round. Barbara, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start on my right. So Barbara, Brandon, Chris.
Well, I certainly, the one thing that's really stuck out with me is enforcement. I don't ever see anything get enforced And I just don't see this being any different. I think we'll just have an ugly RV park at the corner, and I agree, that's a really special area. The traffic is that's where it always starts backing up, is right there, for if you're heading into town. I think that every property that this landlord owns is not kept up at all. From the gas station at Chevron with the dead containers and missing whatever, the RV park down here, the condition of this park, and there's never anybody saying, you've got to fix this. There's just not. So I don't see where, I'm against the RV park, but I understand that he has the right to build what he wants, but I think however we can fight it, we should again try to fight it.
Yes. Brandon?
Well, first of all, thought of an RV park, I would think that it would attract a lot of homeless, encampment for RVs. And, speaking of that, there's already a lot of the homeless, overnight RV, encampment in Airport Street, and they got to go first. So, I don't think, it's a good idea. I would support Dan's idea of, putting, having that place be a outdoor events place with extra parking, and all that stuff and decorations. We could use more decorations there. And events, I love events. But another important point is that I think that since there's going to be a lot of RVs there, I think it would be a good idea if we could put some vehicle barriers, those like little poles by the entrances near the mall, because I'm really sick and tired of reading in the newspaper every day of of a hit and run, of cars driving onto the sidewalks, of some insane criminals ramming people. And I think that we do need to have a little more security, especially with all these terrorist attacks, and nefarious acts. I think they should put these anti-vehicle barriers, especially since it involves a lot of RVs. Something could happen, and I would dread, that there might be a casualty if the safety measures are not prevented. So I'd ask that an amendment to, put the barriers, by that in front of the mall be added here.
Okay. Chris?
All right. So I support this letter as written because everything that is stated in this letter would help improve this. Now, that said, I've characterized this as an aesthetic wound on the coast side, and there's no amount of bandages that are going to help that. However, the points made in this letter are better than what will make it better than what's there right now. So I fully support this letter. But in looking at the letter and in looking at the last time the MCC reviewed this and had a letter, my feelings around this project center on the traffic safety and circulation. And per what Dave was saying, we're not even decision makers, so we can't say, we're against it, we're going to vote against it. There's a project being proposed by a landowner who owns it. So saying I'm against it, okay, but then what? Also, I think there should be this there or that there, okay, but right now, this is what's here. This is what we have to deal with. So for me, I'm with, I think it was Carl or somebody else. For me, the traffic study is flawed. All right, so let's look at the traffic study. Let's make the traffic study be more accurate. And if a result of that is there's now some responsibility by this landowner to pay for infrastructure improvements, well, that might be a deterrent. Okay, so for me, the traffic study is flawed. And so those were many of the bullet points I raised in the amendment I would like to have included in this letter. For example, what size vehicles were used to determine level of service and mobility conclusions. Carl, I know you don't think that the length of the vehicle is important, but I do. These are 30 to 45-foot vehicles. So those are 3 or 4 regular cars. They are big and heavy, so they're slower to accelerate, slower to decelerate. As we've heard from other traffic studies, when there's a couple second delay in the chain, it extrapolates out to much more than a couple. So when we have these slower vehicles slowing down, and that's just on a straight line. Forget turning into the harbor, and then the whole turning into the drive. So the size of the vehicles I think is important. That was not discussed at all in the traffic report or the methodology. So to me, flawed, because we're specifically talking about a project for these types of vehicles. Next, was the viability of the driveway entrance to the shops at Harbor Village tested with any Class A or Class C RVs, or were mathematical formulas and models used exclusively? In the traffic study, they talk about some mathematics they used to determine if this was going to be turnable, and the result, oh, it's no problem. They've got a document, drawing in the traffic report that shows how easy it's going to be for these vehicles to make the turn. But again, I ask, did anybody witness a Class A RV, average about 30 plus feet, make this turn without bowing out into the center lane, which is a straight through lane, without coming across the sidewalk where there's going to be pedestrians, or going wide and running into the barrier in the middle there? The answer is no, because it's not in the traffic report. So they didn't ever see a full-size vehicle that's going to be in this RP park doing that. So I'm not convinced, and this drawing doesn't convince me either. Because again, you see where the turning they're showing here, this is the turn. If you've ever driven a 40-foot vehicle, it doesn't turn like a car around the road. You have to swing the front end out so that the middle doesn't go across the sidewalk and the rear wheel doesn't go up over you have to swing it way out. You have to swing it way out before you even start the turn. So you're swinging out into the middle lane, into Claire's head. Exactly, that's what my point. So was the viability of the driveway actually tested with real life vehicles and real life drivers? And these are not professional truck drivers. These are older folks generally who are driving these vehicles every once in a while. Okay. Next, the traffic report used 3 RV parks as comparisons. One is the one right down here. Okay, that seems like a logical one. It's here on the coast side. It's about the same size. It doesn't have the turning issues, but okay. But the other 2 they use is a 250 space one in Morgan Hill, okay, and the one down at Pelican Point. Both of those last ones I mentioned have long-term permanent residents that are, month leases and year leases. That's not what this is. So why did they use those 2? The Morgan Hill one, it's not even on the coast side. There's no tourist, destination point that people are going to. So that's a ridiculous comparison. So there we go. Another problem, this traffic report does not consider at all that there is another entrance to this mall parking lot coming from the backside over there by Old Princeton Landing over by Prospect Street. Not even mentioned in this traffic report. Cars can these big vehicles coming in off of North Capistrano, coming through that area, clogging that area up, and then trying to make that turn into that back because Waze or whatever is going to show them, oh, if you're coming from the north, get off here. Not even mentioned in the traffic report. Another flaw. And then, as we've mentioned, the cumulative impacts of there's a list in the traffic report of projects that might impact this or projects that are in the pipeline. But those are projects for which applications have been submitted. So what is not in there, Cypress Point is not in there, the Hyatt is not in there,
Cypress Point is in there.
I didn't see it in there.
It's one of the projects that's ongoing that the county added a factor for.
All right, I did not.
Again, you can dispute whether it's enough of a factor. but
Okay,
it's in there.
I did not see that listed in the list of specific projects that were in there. They may have factored it in as a general thing, but I did not see it in the list of specific projects, nor the proposed hotel on Main Street in Montero. So those are just a couple of the projects that are not in here per the cumulative thing. There's nothing in here south of Frenchman's Creek. And as we've discussed, we're all connected here, so when you have nothing from Half Moon Bay that factors into this, and we have big, long vehicles, a lot of them coming in from 92, it's all connected. So that's the crux of my desire for this amendment, is the traffic study, of which there's no problem here, there's no responsibility for the landowner to make any kind of improvements here, good to go. Without this project, that road is a mess and needs to be worked on. 3 lanes to 1 right at that driveway, and be just on the other side of the driveway, it's down to 1. Fire marshal's already come in here and advocated, and the ordinance has been changed. Parking's been removed on Capistrano beyond that driveway because it's too narrow and too dangerous for the emergency vehicles. Yet we're gonna have 3 lanes there with big RVs turning in there. It doesn't make sense to me, and I just feel it's really critical to have something about traffic circulation and safety in any document that we submit on this project. Whether we are supportive of the project or not is irrelevant. These are the issues with the project at hand. So I don't advocate saying we're for it or against it, but I feel strongly that these bullet points in this text that I've offered be included in the letter that I fully support.
Okay,
Can I
so
just-
before you do that,
No, I'm not going to speak to that. I have something else I want to
okay,
say.
I'll get to you. I want to say, right before the page that you printed here,
Yep.
they say that they've analyzed the driveway.
I know that.
It's 24 feet wide where normal design would require 18. They simulated it with a standard 30-foot long truck. They did it with a large motorhome vehicle and a passenger car with a camper trailer, and also a motorhome towing a boat. So I think they covered what you wanted very specifically. You may disagree with their answers, but they covered them.
Can you say exactly what they did with this vehicle?
Yes, they looked
You're saying
at,
they made a right turn from the
Yes.
right-hand lane?
yes,
Without veering into the left? And
yes.
without rolling onto the sidewalk?
They're doing the standard traffic modeling, standard turning.
But this is modeling, that's
It
what
was
I
a
asked.
real
I say that's
It was not
impossible.
real vehicles.
Sorry.
So the other thing is, I've been there and watched motorhomes make that turn. And I've watched trucks make that turn, and they make that turn. So,
Again, the question I asked was, were real vehicles used, were real vehicles witnessed when they were supposedly on-site watching?
so-
And the answer is no.
so they can't use a real vehicle because there's
Wait,
no
wait,
driveway
Steve.
for them to turn into.
No, I'm not
Steve
talking,
goes, can I say something?
Sure.
The intersection where you go into the harbor and you go into the harbor village, I understand the harbor district has talked for some time about improvements needed for that intersection for big trucks to enter and exit, correct?
Correct.
If there is an issue here with the entrance for this RV park, it would seem likely that the two entities would work together on that improvement. Did you have anything to offer on that topic?
I've not talked to the property owner on any project on the other side of Capistrano. We have looked at making some improvements turning into the harbor off of Capistrano in order to facilitate the tractor trailers that go out to the end of the pier.
Would it take the form of moving that center island back so they don't run over it anymore?
It's widening the turning radius in leaving and in entering. Also, the way that little median strip comes up, there's no continuation of the sidewalk across there. Those are the sort of things that we've been looking at.
Okay. I just thought you might be leaving and I
was going to, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
well, thank you, we appreciate the extra information. Anyway, so,
but Dave,
so we can argue all this, but this is, the point is, you can't actually drive the the RV park because the RV park doesn't exist.
I'm not
So you
talking
have
about
to
that
model
driveway.
it.
I'm talking about from Capistrano into
So that-
using the
so this
existing
is not-
driveway.
This is not what traffic consultants do. They don't drive trucks into places.
And that's-
You can ask planning for that, but would be an extremely unusual thing to do, particularly when there are already trucks and RVs making that turn.
Sounds like we're gonna need to
Wait.
make a YouTube video
Wait,
of this.
let me just quote one sentence from this document. However, the review indicates that a motorhome vehicle with an attached boat also would be able to complete the right turn movement into the shared access driveway, but would need to use some of the through lane on Capistrano Road. It says it right in the document that it can't make the turn, and that's a...
No, that's a motorhome
with
towing a boat.
Yes, and there's pull-through spots in this RV park for vehicles towing a trailer. So again,
But not towing a boat.
this traffic report is not good enough, is what I'm saying. And to just use modeling, it's not good enough. That intersection is too dangerous. They are not professional truck drivers. There's gonna be problems. Somebody's foot's gonna get run over, somebody's gonna lodge into that center median, somebody's gonna swing out and get clipped from behind as they try to make... I hear what you're saying, Dave, and that I agree with you on that in terms of what Carl was saying. Like, we can't have anecdotal evidence. If we want to pay for our own traffic consultant to have our own traffic report, we've got the empirical data to counter this. What I'm pointing out are flaws in this traffic report. It's not good enough. There needs to be another one. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to take into consideration specifics for this specific project. If we were building a project that included bays for semi-trailers and they were going to back up and park, the traffic report would have to consider those specific vehicles. This is a generic traffic report that doesn't consider the specific types of vehicles that are going to be using this facility. And that's what I'm trying to point out with here, that this
Okay,
traffic
so we
report is not
disagree.
good enough.
So it does actually address them. You just don't like the way they address it.
Well, okay.
So let's be really clear.
It inadequately addresses.
And the reason I'm going through this, not to argument in front of everybody, but is because what you were proposing adding to the letter was a series of questions.
Right.
And I don't think adding questions to a letter of comments is effective. I
Well,
think
actually-
if you want to say the council believes that additional studies with actual vehicles are needed, that's something we could put in the letter. But to put a series of questions in the letter is not something I see as effective.
It's a format
We have
issue.
done that in the past.
I know we
They've
have,
always, you can also just send your questions to the planner and hopefully get some answers that, anybody could do that. Oh, I just want to say, because I know these plans were unwieldy, but I did get a measurement. The RV slots are 20 feet wide, but I also just measured today. Most of them are set up for 30-foot length. There are a fair number for 35 or 40-foot length, and then there are two that measure 50 feet, go figure. And actually, those are the two we suggested they need to take out. And I don't know, that must be a towed vehicle, because I
Yeah,
can't...
it's got to be with a
yeah.
towed vehicle. It's probably a motorhome towing a car trailer. All right.
Next.
So, next, Claire.
I'm just observing the level of agitation in the room this evening. Yeah, really. I think, all these projects, and this is not the biggest of all the projects that we've had to look at, but they all bring us to this point of saying, look, we cannot tolerate whatever this is that we're bringing up. And on the other hand, we can't stop it from something from happening. And we keep coming back to, this is a whole community that stretches a number of miles and has many, many things that are proposed for it. And we have to do something that takes everything into consideration. And we don't know how to do that. I think that's a big problem. I think the sophistication to model what everything would look like if everything was built, or how things would look if everything was modified, we just don't have that. And what I'd like to ask the people that are watching this, people from the county who aren't here anymore, anybody that can give me any ideas or give us any ideas about how to set up a sophisticated way of looking at this entire issue, I would love to pursue it. I just don't know where to start. And if anybody could help with this, please do.
Can I ask you a quick question? I hear, I mean, you're my representatives, and I hear you saying you cannot put in the letter that you disapprove of the project, but everyone who's stood up in this community has said tonight, we don't want this project. I'm wondering if you can put some footnote or something saying that everyone that spoke at the meeting said that they were opposed to this project. If you're not comfortable saying it as a committee, that you can at least express.
I think that's a good idea.
Let me clarify. I was not saying that we can't say that the council doesn't like the project and wishes something else to do. We can absolutely do that. I'm just saying that we, as the county, because technically we are part of the county, being advisory body to the Board of Supervisors, can't just say no to the property owner. We have to have reasons to say no that are legally acceptable. Because if you push those limits, you wind up in court, and everybody spends a lot of money, and the project gets built anyway.
Well,
So,
I had the same confusion that Virginia had, because we're getting down into the weeds about what plans we want. I assumed the thing was approved already. And it gave me great hope when you told me it wasn't.
no, it's absolutely not approved, and we had asked for changes. They mostly didn't make them. They did make some. Other reviewers have asked for other changes.
Well, I would just ask that you note somewhere in this, if you feel it's appropriate, that the community who spoke was opposed to this RV park.
Okay, I hear that, and that's something we should absolutely consider. Okay, so I've been monopolizing it.
Just to answer that a little more, on our Harbor Village page that we have now, you can, the county did a very nice document after the pre-application workshop where there was a big turnout at the yacht club, and virtually everyone was against the project, some people very rudely so. And that document covers those comments and responds to them, and it also has the comments from the different agencies on the RV park. And so it's interesting to go back to that point and see the comments that were made, and then what the developer then comes back with changes to try and address those things, which, like I said, it has not been downsized, it's just been shuffled around. And then, once again, more comments from different agencies, and they make these changes, but like I say, the first meeting, and we attended the pre-application workshop, we didn't comment at that time, but we heard the community, and when we commented last September, we referenced that turnout and those feelings, and this is our second letter, and I didn't duplicate the whole thing, but it has been mentioned that the community's right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chris had proposed changes.
I also.
You talked about a lot of things. I didn't hear you actually propose.
Well, I actually proposed an amendment to ask for security barriers against those trucks and RVs by the entrance of the mall.
Are you talking about opposite the entrance to the RV park, or where?
Well, all right. So there's the Mezzaluna Cafe, that entrance to the mall.
That's pretty
Where
much a barrier
would
in and
that
of
stop
itself.
though? That's the thing. Going in that direction, where would you stop with that? So
I can't resist, I'm sorry. Basically, you look at the current satellite image on Google Maps that's there now, and it was taken on a heavy beach use day, and it's an eye-opener. You start at the tunnel and you zoom in and you go on down, and the traffic, the cars along the road, all the parking lots full, out to Mavericks, along Surfers Beach, and the harbor's full, and all the way down, every place is just full of people going to the beach. But the one anomaly is the Harbor Village parking lot. there were 200 empty spaces in it. And so I don't think if you were going to drive your vehicle into a crowd, that would be the place you would choose. So I'm sorry, I just couldn't.
There needs to be a
Keith
crowd.
loves that logic. I've got to say.
Well, I mean, the Bay Area is gaining notoriety for hit and run and drivers driving onto the sidewalk and ramming people. I'm sick and tired of these scums doing all that stuff and getting away with it.
But this is not an area where people drive on sidewalks a lot. And that particular section of sidewalk is 50 feet wide. So it's not like you were be pinned between anything in the building. So I personally can't see a justification, but let's do a straw poll. Does anybody else want to include that?
Brandon, where are you wanting these bollards?
So, all right, so basically, where's
Here's
the...
Mezzaluna down
All right.
here.
Oh, here's Mezzaluna.
So the steps are like right here.
Oh, okay, all right, so like basically here and there, like, you know,
To keep cars from coming into here.
Yeah, from driving onto people and, you know, from all these sickos in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Well, they don't come here.
So
Can't argue with that.
Ignoring comments on those of us in the Bay Area. A straw poll of the council, does anybody other than Brandon want to make an addition to the letter that reflects the barriers?
Or security measures.
Personally, no, sorry, Brandon, but I agree with Dave and others. I don't see this as there's steps there, so cars probably not gonna come down the steps, and there's just not that many people there. As Lisa said, there's many other places where.
Or maybe we could put a potted plant.
You're gonna run amok.
Well, this isn't really our purview anyway.
I don't think it's, I think that would be something for a different agenda item, like it doesn't, it's not, fleshed out enough, I think, for this letter, you know, because you said, or security measures.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have an agenda item with security measures for RV Park or Harbor Village with specifics, I'm willing to listen to that.
So I'm hearing no on that one.
Well, that was from me.
Well, I'm not hearing anybody else say yes. So how about Chris's additions? We all have a copy of them at this point.
I would support some of them, but not in the current format.
Okay. Do we have a deadline on this, Lisa?
A week ago.
Okay, so we probably don't have time for another meeting, but we could direct Lisa to add stuff and pre-approve it. We've done that before, if we can reach agreement.
What part do you
What part
not
would
like?
you like clear?
Just the fact that this is a series of questions as opposed to the declaratory nature of the rest of the letter.
Okay, but so you want all of these additional bullets addressed in the letter?
I would, most of it, yeah.
I guess the idea was, since this is addressed to Ramel, the project planner, is they're stated in the form of question to ask, to get him to ask himself these questions. So as he sits down, what size vehicles were used to determine, I want him to ask himself that question and then follow up on it.
And solutions,
He's got to ask himself the question
potentially, you know,
first, is the
Okay,
thing.
and so I think we got it from you, Chris. I'm asking the other people, because if there's enough people who want to add something, then we can hash out the language. So clear is a yes.
I would say,
Okay.
yeah.
I did the rest of the letter, and I have no problem with adding this on as it is.
I have problems with it, and I have to sign it.
If we're gonna get into editing this, that's always
Yeah,
horrendous.
we're not gonna edit on the fly. Well, if we
Well,
want
if you had if your overall concerns, or if just certain bullets you want stricken, or is this gonna be, this is a fair-sized paragraph. We're not gonna edit it in this meeting.
No,
if we have.
I'm not trying to edit it, I'm trying to come up with points. So Claire wanted all of these points, Chris wants all of these points. Dan, opinion?
Back to your guys' discussion about this traffic study. It's important to know that every individual has a different comfort level of driving an oversized vehicle. Some people need that extra room. So, you know, they probably figured on their data that, you know, a professional RV valet parking driver was able to make these turns.
I don't
and
think
just,
so. They're using a generic RV.
I just don't think that it's really possible to make a turn with a full-size RV and a trailer in that turn without taking out the other
Well, and they said if it's towing a trailer too, it's going to have to go.
I've already witnessed so many near misses. Now, these RVs, the way they operate, they move slow, but they move aggressively. They're sitting there for minutes trying to get into the intersection, and they get at a certain point that they just haul out and they'll run right and they'll demand that the other car stops. That's the way this works.
Okay.
At the same time, they don't see this pedestrian crossing over here because they've been looking down the road to the right for the oncoming traffic.
Okay, so is your answer yes, you want all these bullets in some form or not?
I think that the
we're late in the evening, so.
I think the traffic is critical. The congestion and the capacity of that intersection should be critical point of this letter.
Oh, and we should also add part for enforcement for the 28 days thing too.
That's the fine tuning at the end.
And that's also something that the planners are not going to address. Enforcement is always assumed to be done, even though we all know from our own work with the county that it's very hard to get enforcement done.
So the Oceana Hotel rooms have limits, and it was spelled out in the conditions of approval, how that was going to be enforced, and paperwork submitted, and this and that and the other thing, but it all sounds good at the time, but as soon as the planner that was running that project leaves, and that's across the board. And so, you know, you get a condition of approval in the project, it could just look rock solid. But all this is enforced by, it's complaint-based, and that's just how it is. And so it's not just this park. Any of these places have limits. Doesn't the beach house also have time limits on how long the owner can stay there?
The owner, yeah.
Yeah, so,
So I would rather keep enforcement out of the comments on the project itself. It's an ongoing issue. It's an issue I care a lot about. It's an issue I'm involved with the code enforcement people. Lisa's involved with them. We get some success, some not. I think it's a separate issue than the planning process and the actual project.
And also in our opinion, I kind of like to add, we should definitely talk about traffic and also the the narrow roads and ways you can prevent the trucks from going over.
Okay, so we can't do that. That's not part of this project.
Oh, okay. All right. In that case, then, other than that, I don't really have a problem with the sign.
Okay, so I'm hearing.
can I
Go, Lisa.
talk about traffic reports? So the traffic report is posted, and it's less than a year old, and it's, I learned more than I ever wanted to know about these things with Big Wave, and you wade through it very carefully, and you learn how the engineers do this to a certain extent. And, there's certain things you can challenge on their input, such as they picked for the comp parks, they picked ones that were not comparable. You can point that out, as Chris did. And also there was a traffic thing done up at the La Costanera where on the actual table where the counts are, it says the date that they took those counts. And I just happened to have information from my rain gauge that showed that Friday, it was a rainy November day. And you can say, well, you need to do your traffic counts on a different day. That kind of stuff. But to just say that it's flawed or whatever the issue is, you need to get your own traffic engineer. The county is going to, this is a reputable firm, Hexagon, and they're not going to take a layperson's critique of the overall results of this project. You need specifics, or you need to bring in your own expert. And, you can say, well, this just doesn't sound right to me at all, but you won't get anywhere with the county with just saying that.
Well, I would propose that we make an agenda item on the traffic study, allow the community to scrutinize it line by line, so that the community can say whether it's hogwash or not.
So, with all due respect, almost nobody in this community has the chops to do that. So I don't see that as being viable. I mean,
Well,
I think it would turn into a complaint session. We all have complaints. Like Lisa says, and I've sat through many meetings with traffic engineers now since I joined the council, not to mention ones I overheard earlier in my life. And most of them care about what they're doing. They're trying to do it right. Yes, when they're paid by a project owner, they slant things towards that project. It's just the way the world works. But they do tend to stand by their data. So, if we said, hey, look, you've got a space here for two 50-foot vehicles. Did the traffic study on the turning radius cover those 50-foot vehicles? That's a very specific item that's totally reasonable to add. To add other specific items, we can add some questions if people really think the questions are okay. As I said, we're not going to edit it. I heard a sense that there's a majority of the council that wants this traffic stuff in there. Lisa's willing to add it. I'm going to propose something which we've done before, which is that Lisa consult with Chris and with me on these additions, and we pre-authorize that letter to go out. We all trust Lisa. I hope you all trust Chris and me to put in what we talked about. And then the question is there anything else? I heard the request for a note on the community response. I think we should add a paragraph on that at the end, a couple sentences. Are you okay with that, Lisa? I think it is a reasonable request.
It's been consistent since 2015, and it's in that,
Right, but it's still, I think it's to say the current plan still has strong community opposition is something that it's reasonable to add to the letter.
Yes.
Okay.
And so if you're okay with that and nobody else on the council has a problem, I think one of us can draft a motion now.
So,
Hold on, more stuff. So, I want to ask for an emergency vehicle plan, because there are going to be accidents, there are going to be pedestrian fatalities. So when that happens and everything is in gridlock, how is the emergency vehicle going to respond to the injured?
Okay, are you talking about inside the RV park?
Talking about at that intersection.
Cardiac arrest in a restaurant.
So the fire department comments on these plans as well?
And they
That's their
consider
department.
medical as well as fire.
Yeah. The fire marshal.
maybe we can talk about barriers there.
I just want to hear it. I just
Pardon?
want,
You want to hear the fire comments?
yes, and I want
We
to,
can ask the planner for that, if it's not posted online. It's all public information.
But are you saying you want us to add something in addition to the fire department?
if it's already somewhere, if they've already responded, then it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, they will have a response in there.
You know, I may have some questions after I see the response.
Yeah.
So that might, maybe should be in this letter.
Well, we can make another letter even though comment period theoretically is closed, and they'll probably.
And I really don't like the idea of, if this project goes through, another reason to enlarge the intersection to make it safe. So this project is gonna take away from that little seaside road there. They're gonna turn it into an enormous intersection, which will look out of place.
Basically, that's where you're going. If you're saying the RVs can't maneuver that intersection, then the result would be that the county would make them pay for an improvement, which you would not think was an improvement. It would not make them say, you
Wait a
can't
minute.
have your RV parked
I
there.
thought there's a law that says that Highway 1 must be 1 lane each.
No, he's
We're
talking
not
about
talking
Capistrano.
We're not talking about Highway
Capistrano.
1.
Okay, all right.
We're talking about the Capistrano.
Oh, okay, that intersection
always-
inside, yeah.
There's always give and take.
So, when the hotel was built, the developer had to add all those extra turn lanes at Highway 1 and Capistrano. And, you know, you got the two lefts, you got all this, and then on Capistrano, they had to add the right turn lane and the left turn lane at that section. And I think the conditions also said something about the next segment there, but apparently they didn't make them do that. But I mean,
So
basically,
they're
that's
gonna put
what, you don't kill the project, you just make them pay for it. Like with Big Wave, you didn't kill the project, they have to pay for the improvement at Cypress.
So we're gonna make them pay for us to turn that into a stoplight so that pedestrians can cross safely?
No, I don't have it in the letter, is that what you want? I don't know where you're going.
No, it's not, but I just don't think that the project should drive such drastic change of the intersection.
So remember the crosswalks on the far side of the intersection, and the theory, and I believe the practice, is that most of the RV traffic would be between the RV park and Highway 1. Undoubtedly, some of it will go down Capistrano the other way, but most of it will not. And so most of the RV park traffic will not cross the sidewalk across Capistrano. It will certainly go across the sidewalk at the entrance to the Harbor
Well,
Village.
we don't know that. Nobody knows that to be a fact. You know, the
When you look at
they're gonna
RV
go-
parks, that's in narrow streets. RV owners don't like driving narrow streets, so they will mostly not drive them. But yes, some of them will absolutely do it, no question. But I've lost where we were, sorry. It's getting
Traffic,
late.
parking, the parking overflow plan. Clearly, there's not enough parking.
Safety
We have that
measures
in the letter.
Parking is in the
already
letter.
there.
and safety measures.
What safety measures?
Well, you know, to
Sure.
prevent injuries and all that type of stuff.
I think it should be moderately specific if we want to put something in about safety.
And, you know, enough so people don't get hit.
Okay. I would like to hear a motion to amend the letter as we've discussed, and then we can second and vote on it if people still agree with it.
Go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion to accept the
So-
letter as discussed.
I was hoping for something slightly more specific.
Why don't you make the motion?
Well,
Dave?
I'd like to, yeah.
Okay, so here's the motion I would like to hear, and as the chair, I don't want to make the motion.
Can you give us an example?
Yes,
Yeah, tell
yes,
us
I
what to
will do
say.
that. That we approve the letter with an additional section on traffic considerations, exact wording to be determined by Lisa, Dave, and Chris, based on Chris's points. That we add a paragraph on community dislike of the project.
And, council members?
I'm sorry.
Community and council members?
Um,
Can we go that far?
Here's the thing, that is, it's been coming along through this whole project, the county knows this. It doesn't provide anything to say that. They will disregard it. Basically, they have their process they go through. They look at this thing, and it's the decision maker that will listen to the community, not the county's planning staff. They have the stuff they're supposed to put together and evaluate, and they'll write up a staff report, and they will present that to the decision makers, and then you go to the planning commission and say, we don't like this project. You know, this isn't the place where you put that.
On the other hand-
Can I interrupt you? This group here, your council represents our community.
Yeah.
I mean, could you, if you don't mind me asking, can you take a vote? Are you in favor of it or not? And just say, all those in favor, and then report. I mean, put that in your report and say, we're not in favor of this development, this proposed project. I think it's important. I mean, it's important that the county knows this, that this is how the representatives of the community feel about this proposed.
I mean, we should do more votes like this.
I think what you're saying, Lisa, makes sense in terms of a procedural response to what we're being asked to comment on. And I hear what you're saying about the community can express its displeasure when it finally goes to the planning commission or the board of supervisors or someplace. But I don't think it hurts to have that little piece of information that this is a disliked project in the community, just accompanying all the other comments all the way through. So it's not a big surprise when it comes before the planning commission or wherever it comes
Yeah,
to.
So I think we agreed, well, we haven't made the motion yet, I made the prototype motion. Put it in the paragraph about the community. The question being asked of the council is, will the council vote on it and put something in the letter about what the council as a whole feels? I'm not particularly comfortable with it, but I'm not opposed to it. What's the sense of the council?
I would be willing to do a sentence or two to sum up the feeling that was expressed at the pre-application workshop, which was well-attended. I would not call this meeting well-attended, but it was clear that night, and I don't sense any change in the community feeling. I would be willing to reiterate that point as like an intro. Does that sound okay? As far as there being any use to the council at this point, saying to the planner that we don't support the project, it just, I don't think we've ever done that.
It would be, I'm not even sure, given that we're an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors, that that's within our scope.
It would also.
So I'm a little concerned about
If we
that.
might do it if we were going to comment to the planning commission.
Yeah.
You know, when we saw the staff report and it was going to the planning commission for a decision, in which case we'd have to hold a special meeting, like on a Sunday afternoon because of the way that works, we might do that. But I don't see this as the time. We're talking to the planner. We want to make sure they analyze this, that, and the other thing, or you know, like what's in here. This isn't the decision time.
Even on Big Wave, we didn't say the council does not want to see Big Wave built. We
Yeah, there
dealt
was
with
4 pages of
specific
reasons
issues.
why
If we were to say we don't want it now, we're getting rid of our leverage because they're asking us to comment on specific things that we do have leverage on. We can make specific comments about specific parts of it, but if we just say, no, we don't want it, we can't make those comments anymore. But I do think we can also say we represent the community and the community is telling us that this is what they want.
Yeah, and that's what Lisa is offering to
Yeah.
add. Carl?
This is not just feelings, okay? This is the community, which is, I would say, the vast majority against this because they know about the traffic problems and so forth that we've got already, represents hundreds of thousands of person days experience with this. Whether you like it or not, our little brains are integrating these experiences in a very real way. This is not just something off the top of our head that we've got with a now legal plot party going on or something like that. And that's what the community, a general community statement very often gets. Oh, well, they're always the loudmouths and so forth and so on. This represents a lot of experience with this stuff. And a lot of our experience is contrary to what these guys with their little algorithms and little studies.
So I personally.
I think the community paragraph can be phrased in such a way that it means something.
Well, we will try and make it as meaningful and as strong as we can. I personally dispute that the RV park is going to contribute to traffic problems, and I would be very unhappy about putting that in the letter.
It will, yeah, but you know it's going to add to them.
It's going to add to them, but I don't think it's going to be significant. But that's me. I'm clearly in a minority in the community believing that. But, yeah, anyway. Okay, so I think we've got.
So are you gonna be out there mollifying people the first time some guy older than me is trying to make that turn into the park and the traffic is backed up
If
on
I'm
the
there,
Highway 1?
If I'm there, I probably will, Carl.
We'll expect you.
Okay.
Traffic will likely be backed
So-
up whether the RV park is there or not.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
You know, I really,
that part is certainly
it's
true.
already bad, so what does it matter? Let's just give them anything. I don't like that attitude, I'm sorry.
That's
I
not.
hear that all the time.
Dan,
It's already, we've already lost
Dan,
it, so what does it matter?
Dan, stop. That is not the attitude of the council. It's not the attitude of the community. It's not the attitude of the county.
I'm sorry, I got triggered.
I
I
know,
hear it
but-
from other people.
I'm
so
sure you
often.
hear it, but
And it wasn't.
that's not the attitude of any of us, including me, who is probably the lone holdout, thinking this isn't gonna be a big traffic problem.
By itself, maybe.
Yes, okay, so does somebody want to make the motion based on the prototype that I gave? And we can get it off the video later if we want to.
I'll forward the motion to approve the amended letters as agreed.
Okay, but we've got to, that's where we keep falling off the table, and so
Let me try.
we need to be specific. We've got two amendments that I think we should consider, and that are the language that I have suggested and the language about the community. Other issues, I think, need to be on a separate agenda. It could be the next meeting, if somebody wants to pull that agenda item together, but otherwise, we're never going to leave here.
So, and the one thing I would ask that be explicitly made in the motion, the letter will be edited after this meeting by Lisa with assistance from Dave and Chris.
All right, I'll see
So
if
that's
I,
really clear.
I'll see if I can propose. So I propose that we take a vote on this letter as amended per our discussion, which is language provided by myself, Chris Johnson, language about community dislike or non-support of this project, with the caveat that that language will be finalized by Lisa Ketchum, Dave Olson, and Chris Johnson after this meeting is adjourned, that's with the tacit approval of the rest of the council members, and that is the motion that I am making right now. We
I'll
approve
second
of-
that.
All right, all in favor, please. All right, carries unanimously.
Is that an against it?
I'll go along with it, and I trust that this traffic circulation language will be strong.
Okay. It carries 7-0, no abstentions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, people in the community, including those who left. We do appreciate all of that input and suggestions.
We're not done yet.
I'm just going to breathe for a second.
When's your next meeting?
April 28th.
Thank you.
I hope you weren't disappointed. The final version of the letter will be posted shortly, and hope you will feel that covers what we said. As far as the community opposition, you would be appalled at how little attention what we say gets paid, and that our putting some strong intro in there is not going to really make any difference at all. But not to say that it's not important to do. Don't want you to, but it's important if the community at large is against this. You need to stand with us. We can't just write our letter and say that. You need to show it, right? When it gets to the Planning Commission, we will let you know, keep track of our website, and write the Planning Commission. Go to the meeting if you can, all that, that's what makes the difference. Just like you coming here to our meeting makes a difference. Then we feel like, oh, well, we're saying the right thing, or whatever it is. If nobody goes to the Planning Commission, our letters don't really mean that much.
Yeah. It takes community support.
We'll stand with you if you stand against it. How about that?
I think it's a fair sense that the vast majority of the council is against it, as it stands.
I think it's, I've heard the phrase, it's a complete lack of imagination or whatever, but I mean, when you start thinking, okay, we need to comment on this, and I start the draft letter, and it's like, okay, so it's about the last thing you would want in that location. But what would we want? And I mean, when I say, I'm not talking about fairy tales, I'm talking about something that somebody, a private property owner, would actually want to build. Or,
Community garden.
well, how's that?
Community garden. He doesn't have to make money. He's made enough money.
Well, you
He's
can't.
got a $43 million
What is interesting?
boondoggle there, the Oceana Hotel, and the shops where businesses go to die.
They're empty.
Well, maybe he could get an LL Bean store there.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have an LL
The
Bean
thing
store
is-
anywhere. I would like to get some of their jackets.
The thing that's interesting in this traffic report, I encourage you to look through it. The table that's in there, appendix whatever, of the projects that are pending. Several pages. Big Wave's in there. In fact, it's in there twice.
Yeah.
I don't know if they counted it twice, but it's in there twice. But for the most part, it's just several pages of homes. And nobody's complaining about that. And, and the other thing we don't see here, we also get applications in, there's one right downtown Moss Beach in a residential neighborhood where they're subdividing a larger parcel into 3 parcels. And you know that's going to be 3 houses. And it's just coming along all the time, and nobody's saying anything about it. And so to get all exercised about the 50 RVs, it's like, and all these other things are happening at the same time, you're not really fixing the problem. And the only thing that we have, other than, the county's process, and they do tend to go try to accommodate private property owners as much as they can. But we have the Coastal Commission. But the thing is, the visitor serving uses are the priority, not residential. Residential uses don't have any, somebody mentioned the affordable housing and that needs to be addressed. But as far as the Coastal Commission is concerned, no, the visitor serving use is the priority.
And
So they're not going to, in that sense, you don't have that to fall back on.
And the council has pushed lot retirement programs and other ways to reduce build-out.
That's where we're going to really have the.
But we've had relatively low traction. We'll hear what the county finally came up with when they come back with the basis for the LCP amendment coming out of Connect the Coast side. But we already know it's not what we would like it to be. But it's a start. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. We have council activity and reports. Do I hear anything from anybody? Claire?
I was able to go to the Water Summit last Friday, which was a very worthwhile program, well-attended at Kenyatta College, which addressed many levels of water management in the county. I won't take a lot of time to go through it because it's already getting late. But it dovetailed a lot with what the presentation we had here tonight was, but it also dealt with things like stormwater management and how everything integrated. The big push of the conference, I think, was really summarized at the end with the message from Jackie Spear saying there is money available to really address some of these problems, but that has to be done in a coordinated fashion. And she challenged the county to actually work across interests and across boundaries and come up with some really workable and worthwhile projects, not just the piecemeal things that we see going on. And that the outcome of the upshot of the meeting, I think, really was a challenge to put something together that the whole county could participate in and could get funding for.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to report?
I went to the Beach Houses Homeowners Association meeting last week and brought up the issue with the trees out in front on the highway. And they are going to make it an agenda item on their next meeting and look at bids about cutting all the trees all the way around. And possibly, if they can, take all those trees out and put some sort of hedge in there, but they need to talk to a landscaper, and so maybe Lisa will go over and do that with us. So that's all.
Thank you.
So I went to another of the charter county charter meeting. Basically, they told me that this is the last meeting where they kind of think about what to study. There's so far some amendments that fail, such as whether to choose to appoint a coroner rather than have an elected coroner. that motion failed to have a study on that. So the next few meetings I'll definitely attend because that's where the meat of the issues go to. And the issues, again, are, whether to change the appointment process for the county manager, whether to separate the offices of treasurer and tax collector, and whether to separate the offices of, this is a loaded word, assessor, recorder, county clerk, election officer, if I had it right, in the right order. But, those are the next issues they're going to get into meet. They're going to meet in the subcommittees, and which is not under the Brown Act, so then they'll report it to the main committee, their findings.
Thank you.
And as a liaison for the school board, are not having a meeting this week. The school board will have the meeting this following week, so I'll be attending there as the liaison for the MCC.
No, not as liaison for the MCC.
Well, the
You're just
correspondent.
Yeah.
Correspondent, excuse me.
We don't have an official liaison. We could appoint one, but we haven't so far. Okay, Chris?
Yes, last night attended the the Granada Community Services District Parks Advisory Committee meeting. They're making some progress. They've got a 12-event summer special event series that they're proposing to their board. That would include things like a tree identification walk and a presentation on local animals, things like, so 12 different events. They're going to present it to the board for the board to approve or disapprove. They're sending out RFPs very soon for proposals for developing median 7, 8, and 11. These RFPs are on a tight timeline, 60 days, and included in that would be 60 days for outreach to the community to get ideas and then develop the plan. So I made comment that 60 days seemed pretty tight for all that, and what kind of outreach are you gonna do for that? So that's something they're working on. They're gonna develop a tree management policy for the medians, and the pump track, which is the big thing that they're trying to get. It was originally proposed for here, it got nixed by residents who didn't want it there, then it's being proposed as part of the Quarry Parks Master Plan,
Up at the top.
over here somewhere.
Yeah.
And, but now the new idea is to lease a size about this big in this Cabrillo Unified School District land, this is all their land in the blue here, lease like this spot right here, a few thousand square feet, and like a 5-year lease, and build a temporary pump track there in the flat area of that parcel, to get something in place rather than hope that the county's master plan ever comes to fruition with regard to the pump track. So that's a new idea for the pump track, and they are prioritizing ideas for inclusion in their inaugural Parks Advisory Committee newsletter. The next meeting of that group is May 5th, 2018.
Anybody else have any council activities to report? All right. Next item is future agendas. We tentatively have an RCD presentation on the 28th, and that's the only item I've got at the moment. Does anybody know of another item for the 28th?
I have to finalize the thing with Steve, either that one or the one after.
Okay.
I think it would be very valuable to the community to be able to go through one of these traffic studies. You could set ground rules from the beginning, but they're done in a way that it's not very easy for an average community member to kind of go through and understand and validate. So that's what I propose.
It sounds like a workshop to me, or a private study. All you need to do is sit down with a report and go through it. It's just work.
Yeah, I don't think it's an agenda item.
I mean, you could just call a meeting, invite people to come if they want to learn more about traffic studies. I don't know who's going to teach it, but.
Well, apparently there's some people here that really, know how to understand it
Well,
quickly, and,
some of us
believe
have
it,
struggled through
believe
it,
it,
but,
believe it's accurate. So,
I'll think about that.
I
think
understand it
Lisa's
could be
suggestion
challenging,
is
probably would be.
better. Trying to do it under Brown Act rules would be, I mean, this meeting has been very interactive, we tend to do that, but doing a whole meeting that way, I think would be problematic.
I think you need to have a traffic person come because even if, I feel kind of familiar with, but I'm not a traffic person. It's just not, otherwise it's just the blind leading the blind.
So one thing you could consider is talking to somebody in Half Moon Bay, their new city engineer, he's not new anymore, been there a year now. Their city engineer has a traffic background. He might be able to suggest somebody on the coast who would be willing to do that. He might even be willing himself, I'm not saying he is, but that's an idea. We certainly have lots of traffic studies to look at here and a lot of them to understand. As a result, we have a lot more traffic data than most areas have because it keeps getting studied, it keeps getting updated. And Half Moon Bay has done more. So the data is there, interpreting it is the hard part and deciding when the data is being fudged. Yeah, the data is almost never fudged. The conclusions drawn from the data can be fudged. It's hard to determine sometimes. Anyway, okay, I'm not hearing any other suggestions. If anybody has any, let me know. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I